The Roman root of Greece. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 151, Olympic Games. On July 9th, the government announced the unified opinions reached at the consultation meeting through the media after the news of the abolition of the equal amount tax system and the implementation of the proportional system of tax payment spread. The middle and lower class people who got rid of the heavy tax burden got what they wanted and turned to rejoicing. The storm in Athens gradually dissipated after this consultation. The government of Alexandros began to implement reforms based on the results of the consultation. Since then, officials in Greece have been divided into affairs officials and government officials. Among them, officials are not affected by political party changes. And at the same time they are not allowed to participate in political activities and must remain neutral. In this way, no matter how fierce the struggle of the party system is, it can ensure that the government institutions can still function normally, instead of the previous, every time the party is rotated. The government is completely paralyzed. As for the administrative officers, which are mainly appointed by the Prime Minister, the administrative officers are responsible for decision-making. Alexandros first introduced drastic reforms in the tax department, replacing almost the entire tax department by recruiting graduates from the University of Athens. Immediately afterwards, the taxation department levied taxes in accordance with the new rules of proportional taxation. The current members of parliament must make a choice, to be a member of the parliament or to be an official in the government. In the future, MPs will no longer be allowed to hold official positions in the government due to the compromise reached at the consultation meeting. Even though most of the public officials in the government now have many cadavers, they are still retained for the sake of stability. However, from now on, the appointment and removal of officials will pass public examinations, select the best, and arrange positions according to their talents. Civil servants are not allowed to do business or engage in any for-profit undertakings related to their public service business. At the same time, public servants are not allowed to actively participate in political activities, and are not allowed to publicly express political opinions or arbitrarily criticize or embarrass the government. In Constantine's view, this was a bourgeois reform, and from then on, the Greek government would become the steward of the country. The whole society will be more dynamic after the political crisis was resolved. The obstacles to the preparation of the Olympic Games disappeared. Coubertin and Vikulis both came to the Tatoi Palace with an uneasy state of mind to visit the Crown Prince Constantine during the time of the political crisis in Greece. Coubertin was under enormous pressure. He never imagined that the proposal to host the Olympic Games would actually trigger a political crisis in Greece, especially the French ambassador in Athens, who blamed him for not being in trouble after the greeting. Constantine curiously looked at a pot-bellied businessman with Mediterranean hairstyle who followed Coubertin. His Royal Highness, I'm very sorry, my actions have caused a riot in your country, Coubertin said sincerely. However, this time I found a solution to the funds. While speaking, he pointed to the businessman behind him. This is a wealthy Greek businessman, George Avilov. If Greece decides to host the Olympics, he is willing to donate 1 million drachmas. Constantine looked at the businessman in surprise. For ordinary people, this is really an astronomical sum. Avilov stepped forward and said respectfully, Your Highness, as a Greek, I am also willing to do my part for the Greek event. You are really generous, Mr. Avilov. In any case, his willingness to pay such a large sum of money for the Olympic Games deserves Constantine's praise. Although it is still not enough to hold the Olympic Games, we can think of some other ways to raise enough funds, Constantine said happily. Although Greece's taxation has been reformed, it is too late to deal with the expenditure of the Olympic Games. It will take at least 2 months for the reform to see results. It is impossible to expect the Greek government to provide financial support. We can let the postal department cooperate with us and issue a batch of stamps with the theme of the ancient Olympic Games, which will definitely be welcomed by people, said Kavouris, a famous Greek poet and official of the International Olympic Committee. These are the first Olympic stamps in the world. We are selling them above face value to raise money. I think everyone will support it. All three thought this was good news and nodded in agreement. Well, on behalf of the royal family, I also donated 1 million drachmas to sponsor the Olympic Games. After much deliberation, there is still a considerable gap between sufficient funds, Constantine said. The move to resume the Olympics has also received support from the Greek people. who have donated 400,000 drachmas to help the International Olympic Committee raise funds with the funds of more than 2 million drachmas. The expenses for the Olympic Games are finally enough. In the following month, under the sponsorship of Avilov, the marble sports field was rebuilt on the ruins of the ancient sports field in the center of Athens on August 4. After the completion of the stadium, a statue unveiling ceremony was held, to commemorate Avilov's contribution to the Games. A statue was erected in the stadium for him at the opening ceremony of the Games on August 6. The stadium was crowded with people, including a total of 80,000 Greek people, who participated in the opening ceremony and surrounded the entire Games factory. Greece notified the world of the Olympic Games to all countries, including the Qing dynasty. However, many countries did not participate because they were not familiar with the Olympics. Only some countries in the European cultural circle were really invited to participate: Australia, Austria, Bulgaria, the United Kingdom, Hungary, Germany, Denmark, the United States, France, Chile, Switzerland, Sweden and the host Greece. A total of 311 athletes from 14 countries. Greece has the largest lineup, with a total of 230 people. www.wuxiaspit.com accounting for 2/3 of the total. Germany and France have 19 people each. The United States has 14 people. Ranking fourth. This year's competition includes 9 major events: track and field, swimming, weightlifting, shooting, cycling, classical wrestling, gymnastics, fencing and tennis. It is worth mentioning that the Olympic Games on August 12 was a marathon. This ancient Greek story is well known in Greece. The number of Greeks who came to watch the marathon reached 110,000, while in Athens at that time, there were only 135,000. The route of the Athens Olympic Marathon is exactly the route that Phidippides ran in the past. From the marathon to Athens, the whole distance is 40 kilometers, and the focus is on the sports field. The people are very concerned about this competition, because after the start of the track and field events, Greece has suffered successive losses and has not yet won a championship, and the marathon is the only event they have hoped for. Minute by minute, the spectators in the stands waited impatiently to see who would win this match when Vladislav, a Greek in a light blue vest, rushed into the stadium for the first time. The audience jumped and cheered. The flowers and gifts in the hands of the audience were thrown to Vladislav. There were even excited audience members shouting to King George and Constantine in the stands, "He should be a minister, please." Remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 152, Oil Cooperation. Hosting events such as the Olympics will help raise Greece's national profile. Just like when you mention cowboys, you will think of the American West, and when you mention windmills, you will think of the Netherlands. They are the business cards of the country, and this kind of reputation can easily be turned into practical benefits. The first modern Olympic Games, which lasted 10 days, came to an end in Greece. The United States won a total of 11 gold medals, 7 silver medals and 2 bronze medals. The host Greece took the second place with 10, 17 and 19 gold medals, followed by 17 and 19 bronze medals. Germany ranked third with 6.5 gold medals, 5 silver medals and 2 bronze medals pieces. There is no doubt that the Games were so successful that King George privately approached Coubertin and asked him if he could keep the Olympic Games in Greece. Greece in September: bright sunshine, blue Aegean Sea, low buildings made of grey rocks, sparse, lush olive groves on the hillsides, branches covered with thumb-sized oval olives. The plain under the hillside is covered with rows of emerald green grape trellises, and the breeze blows, setting off bursts of green ripples. I took a breath of the air mixed with the fragrance of grass and trees, and I just felt refreshed on the Peloponnese Peninsula. The beautiful scenery of the coastal estate of Kastebro has amazed the guests, including Constantine. A group of 10 people sat under the umbrellas in the olive grove in the middle of the mountainside, enjoying the beautiful scenery with the Greek style, seeing such a pleasant scenery. My old man seems to have become young. Nobel, who held the battle of civilization in his hand, sighed after the Greek government carried out large-scale administrative reforms. The Greek economy has undergone tremendous changes. Kosterblum invited everyone to come to the family manor and hold a gathering of business people. Mr. Nobel, what are your thoughts on the Zipeo Foundation, cooperating with your Nobel family, establishing an oil company, and cooperating in the development of Albania's oil fields? After taking a sip of wine, Junshi raised his goblet. Tanton said to little Nobel, ever since the exploration of oil fields in Feri, Albania, Constantine, through Nobel, greeted the Nobel family, who runs the oil business in Baku, and work together to develop oil fields in Albania, and the little Nobel in front of him is Nobel's nephew and the youngest son of Nobel's second brother. After receiving the invitation of Constantine, he came to Greece from the Caucasus of Russia. The reason why he wanted to cooperate with the Nobel family was that Constantine also saw that the Nobel family had accumulated profound knowledge in the oil field and had superb skills with the addition of such powerful factions. Albania's oil fields can make profits faster whether it is oil extraction technology or oil refining technology. Without a certain technical accumulation, it is impossible to play. Especially heavy oil fields such as Albania oil field are not only more difficult to exploit, but also technically difficult to refine due to their high sulfur content. In the case of a weak technical foundation, only the Greeks themselves toss. Who knows when Albania's petroleum products will enter the market? After learning that their own exploration team had produced oil in Albania, the Nobel family also paid attention to the situation in the oil field. A heavy oil field with an annual output of 80,000 tons is not high, but fortunately, it will improve with the improvement of oil extraction technology every year. After consulting the opinions of oil exploration experts in the family, although the profit is not large, it is due to risk diversification. From the perspective of financial management, the Nobel family still sent little Nobel to come to Greece to discuss cooperation matters. The Zipeo Foundation invested 10 million drachmas, accounting for 60% of the shares, and the Royal Education Foundation invested 3 million, accounting for 20% of the shares. The Nobel family invested in technology, including oil exploration and refining technology, without the principal, accounting for 20% of the shares, and the tripartite cooperation to develop the oil field in Ferry City. His Royal Highness, our Nobel family is happy to cooperate with you, little Nobel complimented. However, I would like to know how big the domestic oil demand is in Greece. As far as I know, Greece currently has a population of only more than 2 million, and electricity has been promoted on a large scale, and the market for kerosene lighting has also been affected. If you export it, you won't be able to sell a good price for that kind of heavy oil, whether it is American oil or oil from Baku in the Caucasus. Both are more competitive in the international market. As a businessman, analyzing the market is an instinct. After some thought, Constantine replied, "You don't have to worry about the market. As we all know, there are no hard coal mines in Greece, and all thermal coal needs to be imported. In order to save foreign exchange, Greece will promote the use of kerosene co-firing boilers on ships," Constantine said. In addition, Greece will promote motorcycles, military and civilians in the country, as a means of transportation, although it is impossible for motorcycles to completely replace the role of horses in the military. In some less demanding positions, such as messengers, motorcycles can be used as means of transportation compared with the consumption of horses. Motorcycles are more economical. As for the folks, Constantine also paid attention and promoted two-wheeled and even three-wheeled motorcycles. The technical requirements of motorcycles are relatively simple, and they are more suitable for the current industrial base of Greece. In addition, due to the large number of mountains in Greece, there are quite a few remote places, and the cost is really not suitable for connecting wires. For the time being, we can only rely on traditional kerosene lighting. Therefore, even if Greece's electricity has become quite popular, compared to for other countries, www.uxiaspit.com, kerosene still has a part of the market. What Constantine said is the goal of the Greek industry in the next period of time. Little Nobel considered the information provided by Constantine: kerosene co-firing boilers, heavy oil, motorcycles, gasoline, lighting, and kerosene. Almost all of the refining products of petroleum can be used effectively. This time the government has reformed the tax system, and now the Greek people have some spending power. Cantorides reminded after putting down the French-style baked snail shell in his hand and wiping his mouth with a handkerchief, thinking of the tax system reform that Greece just implemented. The people also have a certain spending power. As for the promotion efforts mentioned by Constantine, it doesn't matter whether the scale of the oil market is worth worrying about. Anyway, the Nobel family only relies on technology to invest in shares, and has not contributed a cent of cash at that time. There was no market for petroleum products in Greece, and the oil companies lost money. And it had nothing to do with the Nobel family. For the Nobel family, this is a surefire deal. Moreover, since Greece won the war in 1896, its territorial area has doubled. It is not as weak as before, and its independent status can only be maintained by relying on the support of European powers, Britain and France. The future market potential is also considerable. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 153, Coal Worries. But according to what I have heard, 90% of the population of Albania today is purely illiterate, and they can't even spell a word, and most of them are MSL. Albania was recently recaptured by Greece. Thinking that the word seating seemed inappropriate, Little Nobel changed his mouth. Speaking of this, Little Nobel looked suspiciously at Yakov, the current head of the Purple Robe Foundation, beside Constantine. According to Constantine's cooperation method, the oil company formed by the cooperation, the Hellenic Oil Company, is going to make a large investment in the city of Feri, including the extraction of oil, the purchase of equipment, and the construction of petroleum refineries. For cost considerations, it is best to set up factories directly in the local area. Although Constantine's so-called Greek economy will be transformed and upgraded in the next period of time, oil demand will rise rapidly. However, in a backward region like Albania, is it a bit too whimsical to carry out a lot of investment and construction? You know, Albania is still under military rule. How to solve the basic infrastructure, such as electricity, transportation problems, and employee problems? Don't worry about it, Mr. Nobel, Yakov said confidently. Once the financial situation of the Greek government improves, according to the government's work plan, it will increase its investment in Albania, Yakov revealed. For example, the railway. The government intends to build the main railway line from Albania to Athens, via the Epirus region. At that time, even if the railway does not pass through Feri city, we can also invest in the construction of a branch line to facilitate the transportation of Feri city's petroleum products. In fact, the city of Feri is very close to the coast, and the nearest Adriatic coast is only about 50 kilometers away in a straight line. Moreover, the city of Feri is close to Vlora, an important port city in the southwestern region of Albania. According to the government's plan, a railway will definitely be built between Vlora and Tirana, Yakov said, dipping his fingers in wine. He drew a rough map of Albania on the white tablecloth, and asked Zia Nobel explained. In this area of railways, the construction of railways was usually accompanied by the laying of telegraphs. When the railways were completed, the telegraphs were also connected. Don't worry about electricity. Recently, we, Tesla Power, have made a decision to invest in a hydroelectric power station in Albania. Carl, the manager of Tesla Power, who was present, told everyone. The hydroelectric power station in Albania, located in the lower reaches of the Vjosa River, after completion, priority will be given to supplying electricity to the port of Vlora and the city of Feri. At present, the power plants in Greece are basically thermal power plants, which generate electricity by burning lignite. For infrastructure like power stations, due to the long cost recovery cycle and high investment costs, Tesla Power Company, with the development of Greece's cotton textile industry and food processing industry, has only started to make profits in the last 2 years. Recently, the food processing industry in Greece has also become a big power consumer, such as olive oil pressing plants, flour processing plants, etc., which contribute a lot to the profitability of power companies. In order to speed up the control of Albania, after the government reform, Constantine specially informed the manager of the power plant, Carl, to invest in a small hydroelectric power station in Albania. With the maturity of the AC power system over the years, with the help of Tesla Power Company plans to make breakthroughs in the field of hydropower generation, and this small hydropower station itself has an experimental nature. If this experiment is successful and the feasibility of the hydropower station technology is confirmed, Tesla Power will build a number of hydropower stations in Greece in the future. The workers don't have to worry, Constantine said. Greece has implemented compulsory education for many years, and there is no shortage of qualified workers. Even an engineer, a student of the University of Athens, is a good choice. Little Nobel looked at his uncle, and Nobel nodded slightly and said, recently, the Education Foundation has also begun to enter Albania, sponsoring the development of Greek language education there. The more illiterate there are, the better for Greece. The Royal Education Foundation, which has sufficient financial resources, has long since entered the territory of Albania under the command of President Sophie Crown Princess, and has sponsored school-age students. No way, in terms of education, the Greek government can't count on it at all. The current Royal Education Foundation is similar to the sovereign wealth fund of later generations, and her beneficiaries are almost all Greeks. Moreover, in these years, the foundation has benefited greatly by investing in industry and commerce in Greece, and its financial resources no longer rely solely on the Congolese colonial government as before. in accordance with the funding agreed with Constantine, for example, in this oil company. In addition to the Zipeo Foundation, the largest investor, it is the funds of the Education Foundation. The Education Foundation will occupy 20% of the shares in the Greek oil company after comprehensively considering these circumstances. Seeing that his uncle also agreed, little Nobel finally made up his mind. Constantine was also very happy to see that the Nobel family was finally drawn into the Greek oil company, which means that in the future, Greece's economy will have a new growth engine, the oil industry. How about it, Castobrian? Now you don't have to worry about the kerosene co-firing boiler. Constantine said to Castobrian. With the gradual development and maturity of the Quengalese colonies over the years, especially the completion of the Quengalese railway system, combined with the reality that the Quengalese waterways are crisscrossed, after the joint operation of railways and shipping, the rich resources of the Quengalese colonies have been fully revealed to the world. The shipping company under the Greek Quengalese Corporation is responsible for the freight and part of the passenger business from Congo to the Mediterranean Sea. The freight business is getting busier and busier, and the thermal coal consumption is also increasing now. www.uxiaspit.com Congo's raw materials such as cane sugar, rice, poppy, used by Philip Pharmaceuticals to extract morphine, wood, copper ore, rubber, ivory and other raw materials are being shipped to Europe in increasing quantities. All of Greece's thermal coal and part of its steel-making coal are imported from the UK. At present, Greece has become one of the UK's important coal customers. This is a hidden concern for Greece's economic stability. Important energy sources are too single. Once the UK is unable to provide Greece with sufficient coal, Greece has no other backup options. Although Germany is also rich in coal, due to its geographical location, the cost of German coal to Greece is higher than that of British coal. The industrial development of Greece is heavily dependent on foreign countries, especially Britain. Therefore, after the oil fields in Albania came into view, Constantine suggested that Kastebro, the Athens shipyard, could try to change the purely coal-fired boilers, use kerosene mixed-fired boilers as ship power, or even use them completely. Heavy oil is the energy source for ships after all. Despite the high sulfur content of crude oil in the oil field, Greece can produce it on its own, and almost all thermal coal is imported from the British. When the relationship between the two countries is close, there is naturally no problem, but who can guarantee that the relationship between the UK and Greece will always be close without the slightest setbacks? Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 154, Baghdad Railway. In view of Greece's own coal predicament, Constantine previously suggested to Kastebro that the Athens shipyard develop a kerosene co-firing boiler, preferably a heavy oil boiler, to change Greece's current dilemma that all thermal coal is imported from the United Kingdom. However, Kastebro shied away from the past on the grounds that Greece had no oil, and heavy oil still needed to be imported, so there was no need to mess around. Due to the increasingly busy shipping business, the tonnage of ships held by the Greek Quengalese Corporation increased rapidly. Later, it simply invested in the Athens shipyard and became the largest shareholder of the shipyard. Heavy oil, a byproduct of petroleum refining, can be used as fuel for ships, which is why Constantine so eagerly pulled the Nobel family into the Greek oil company. I will inform the Athens shipyard and ask them to immediately cooperate with the University of Athens to improve the boiler to adapt to heavy oil as fuel, Kastebro said. If Greece could have some hard coal mines, it wouldn't be so frustrating, lamented Kastebro. The fact is that there are so many ghosts. Greece is rich in lignite resources, but there is no hard coal, all of which are immature and lean coal. So far, Greece's industrial development plan has been going smoothly, but coal has become a hidden worry for Greece at present. Several industrial countries in the world are not resource-poor countries. On the contrary, each country that has completed industrialization is not bad in some hardware resources. The so-called European developed countries are all resource-poor countries and need to import a large amount of raw materials. The formation of this view is actually a matter of time and space. After World War II, if the time is adjusted forward to the end of the 19th century or the beginning of the 20th century, this view does not hold true. Like the United Kingdom, the United Kingdom itself is very rich in coal and iron resources, especially coal mines, which can supply large amounts of coal to European countries. The Industrial Revolution took place in Britain, which seems to be a coincidence, but it is inevitable. The first industrial revolution was the steam engine revolution. Coal and iron are enough. What else is needed? The German industry has been able to develop rapidly, and the coal mines in the Ruhr area have also played a major role. The quality of Ruhr coal is almost all above the level of hard coal, with reserves reaching tens of billions of tons, making it a world-class coal mine coupled with the iron mines of Alsace and Lorraine. The unified Germany is also complete with coal and iron, and its industrial development has been advancing rapidly before the Second Industrial Revolution, when electricity and the internal combustion engine revolution played an important role in social production. European countries like Britain, France and Germany were not really resource-poor countries after all. Even in the Second Industrial Revolution, coal can still be used for thermal power generation. The traditional industrial countries in Europe need to import raw materials from overseas on a large scale. In fact, in the original time and space, in the middle and late World War I, oil became more and more important. Western Europe really has no oil reserves. The North Sea oil field was later. Speaking of which, from the perspective of industrial development, Italy is in the same situation as Greece. Almost all coal and iron ore needs to be imported. In terms of coal mines, Italy may not be as good as Greece. At any rate, Greece still has good lignite reserves, which can be used to generate electricity. Of course, compared to Greece, Italy also has its own advantages. The Po River plain in northern Italy may not be comparable to all the arable land in Greece combined. Anyway, there's Italy in a situation similar to ours. Kosterblum joked, why does Italy give the impression that it fears the British like a tiger? Even when joining Germany's allies, it has to make a special statement that once the enemy of the allies includes Britain, Italy has discretionary power. Perhaps a clue can be seen from the coal imports from Italy. Like Greece, Italy is heavily dependent on Britain for coal. By the way, when it comes to railways, I recently heard news that the Germans are planning to build the Triple B railway. Little Nobel said suddenly. The oil products of the Nobel family also have their own customers in Germany, and naturally there are news channels. 3B. Railway. Carl asked suspiciously. Seeing Carl's question, everyone realized that Carl is a German. The planned railway runs from Berlin to Baghdad via Byzantium. The first letter of the Latin alphabet of the three major cities is the letter B, so it is called the Triple B Railway, Little Nobel explained, because, after the completion of this railway, Baku's oil can be easily transported to countries along the railway, such as Bulgaria, Serbia, Austria-Hungary, and Germany, so we oil traders are very concerned about it. In order to transport Baku's oil, the Russians specially built a railway from Baku to Batumi. From Batumi's port, Baku's oil can be shipped to all parts of the world after being loaded on ships. If this railway can be repaired, Baku's oil does not need to pass through the Bosphorus Strait at all, and can be loaded directly from the Black Sea coast to Europe. Moreover, along this railway line, many areas where Baku kerosene could not be sold due to inconvenient transportation and high transportation costs in the past have now opened their doors. This is indeed good news for the Nobel family, who do oil business in Baku. I heard that recently, the German Emperor Wilhelm II will come to Constantinople to visit the Ottoman Empire and meet with the Sultan specifically on the Baghdad railway issue. Since the last Teo War, at the London meeting, the Germans helped the Ottomans to regain the important port city on the Aegean coast, Thessaloniki, from Greece by negotiation. The relationship between the two countries further development. Constantine once speculated that the reason why the Germans were so enthusiastic www.uxiaspit.com was that the Germans had made some kind of pie deal with the Ottomans. This railway may be good news for the Nobel family, but it is indeed a terrible thing for Greece. After Greece and the Ottomans signed the London Agreement, the Ottomans were forced to cancel the trade discrimination policy. Soon, Greece, with its geographical advantage, made the Ottomans once again become the largest market for Greek goods. Once the Baghdad railway built by the Germans is really successful, it is conceivable that along this railway, German goods will flood in, squeezing Greece's market share. After all, the reason why the Germans are so enthusiastic with the Ottomans, and they did not build such a railway at a high cost, originally had the consideration of selling German goods to the Ottomans, and at the same time purchasing ores and other agricultural and animal husbandry products from the Ottomans. Greek industrial products, after losing their cost advantage, will definitely not be able to compete with German products. At present, a considerable part of Greece's domestic production machinery is itself purchased from Germans. This is only on an economic level. With the help of the Germans, the Ottomans built large-scale railways in the country and controlled their own territory, just like the Russians built the Trans-Siberian Railway at all costs. If it is successful, I am afraid that for Greece, from a political and military perspective, consider it even worse. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 155, Baghdad Railway, 2. After returning from Kosterblum's manor, He happened to meet the Greek ambassador to Constantinople, Lundhert, and returned to Greece to report on his duties. After hearing the news, Constantine specially invited Lundhert to Tatoi Palace in order to understand the current situation of the Ottoman Empire. In the reception room, Constantine and Lundhert met. "Your Excellency Ambassador, I called you here because I want to learn some news about the Ottoman Empire from you," Constantine said. "As far as I know, the Ottomans, with the help of the Germans, are overhauling the railways in the country, Ambassador." Lundhert put down the coffee in his hand and said, "Your Highness, the Ottomans simply cannot afford the high cost of the railway, and their finances are now bankrupt. The core territory of the Ottoman Empire, Asia Minor, is a plateau terrain with rolling hills and ravines. If you want to build a railway in such a place, it will cost you several times as much as on the plain, but, as far as I know, the German construction team is still building railways in the Ottoman territory." Constantine was surprised. The Ottoman Empire's finances are now unsustainable. After hearing the news, the ambassadors of the European powers in Constantinople are going in and out at the High Gate, the representative of the Ottoman government, every day, just to win the Ottoman Empire. The right to build the Asia Minor Railway, Hadrian said Britain, Russia, France, and Germany must covet this road once the Ottoman traffic artery is controlled. Its influence on the Ottomans will be far more than other countries, and the minerals and agricultural products in the Ottoman Empire are at your fingertips. Through such a railway, it is easier for the goods of the controlling country to be sold within the Ottoman Empire, while the goods of other countries are excluded. Your Highness, what do you think? Such an inland communication line, which of the powerful countries has no desire? Then, Your Excellency Ambassador, which country do you think is most likely to win this competition? Constantine asked curiously. Although little Nobel got the news that Germany intends to build the Triple B Railway, it is the Germans' own will after all. Germany, Hadrian said without hesitation. Is there any special reason? Why is it Germany and not other countries? Constantine wondered. Because Germany is a newly rising power, it is the most powerful and powerful, Lundhert explained to Constantine. First of all, Russia will definitely not have the chance to build this railway at first. Russia and the Ottomans are a feud. If Russia were to build this railway, the Sultan would not be able to sleep at night. Maybe one day, the Tsar's army will ride the railway built all the way to the city of Constantinople. Secondly, the Trans-Siberian Railway is being built in Russia, and the funds for the Russians to build the railway are borrowed from abroad, mainly from France. Where do they have extra money? It is difficult to build a railway in the Ottoman territory. Probably not inferior to the Ottoman Railway of the Trans-Siberian Railway. Constantine pondered Lundhert's analysis and nodded again and again. It really makes sense. So, although the Russians also participated in the scramble for the construction rights of the Minor Sicily Railway, it was more like disturbing other countries and muddying the water. France has always had plans for Lebanon, and continued to infiltrate it economically and politically. The Ottoman Empire couldn't see it. To let the French build this railway is also to lead wolves into the house. Then, why can't the British get the right to build this railway? The British have had a good relationship with the Ottomans for a long time, Constantine asked rhetorically. The Ottoman Empire was able to persevere until now after the Russians were defeated several times in the Russo-Turkish War, and was not swallowed alive by Russia. The British contributed a lot in order to maintain the political and military balance of power in Europe. Blocking Russia in the Black Sea and blocking its access to the Mediterranean has always been the goal of the British, and possibly the French, and in the Crimean War, the two countries even ended up personally. Nearly 1 million troops fought on the coast of the Black Sea, just to dispel Russia's idea of the Ottoman Empire. In this regard, the UK is really a very likely choice. Without Germany's participation, the right to build the railway would be the most likely to be won by the British, Lundhert said. However, recently, the United Kingdom has also personally stepped down and divided up a lot of Ottoman territory. Although Egypt was still nominally a vassal of the Ottoman Empire, the British actually controlled Egypt at the same time. During the Russo-Turkish War in 1878, while the Ottomans were in panic, the British took the island of Cyprus from the Ottomans. So, now Ottoman doesn't trust the British as much as before, Lundhert explained. Now, the Ottoman foreign policy is to win over the various powers and let them restrain each other, so that the Ottoman Empire can benefit from the disputes between the powers. Constantine pondered. Isn't this using barbarians to control barbarians? In this respect, Germany is in the best position. Germany has not seized territory from the Ottoman Empire, which is not like Britain. The Ottoman government will not resist Germany. Moreover, as a latecomer, Germany already has a lot of interests in the Ottomans, unlike Britain, France and Russia. Introducing German power can better balance the power of foreign powers in the Ottoman Empire, and in order to quickly gain a firm foothold in the Ottomans www.wuxiaspit.com, Germany will naturally reciprocate and offer a generous price, not as excessive as Britain and France. So, the right to build this Ottoman railway is probably the best hope for the Germans. Lundhert's analysis is clear, and it really makes sense after listening to Lundhert's analysis. Constantine also figured out the whole story. The Ottoman railway was originally his own idea. He wanted to strengthen the empire's control over the territories under his control, and it had nothing to do with the Germans. It was only because the construction of the railway was too difficult that Ottoman had to hire German personnel to help build the railway. Then, the finances of the Ottoman Empire could not make ends meet. After 1896, it was no longer enough to support the continued construction of the railway, so various countries came to sell it, trying to take the opportunity to win the right to build the railway, and the Germans also wanted to get the right to build this railway, and even on the basis of the Ottoman Empire's original planned Asia Minor railway line, the Ottomans originally planned to build it to Constantinople. They wanted to go further and directly connect Berlin, Vienna, Constantinople, Baghdad, to the Persian Gulf. Germany's Triple B railway plan is not exactly the same as the Ottoman Empire's Asia Minor railway. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 156, Population Problems. In November 1897, the German Emperor Wilhelm II came to Constantinople and visited the Ottoman Empire. Not surprisingly, Germany got the right to build the Ottoman Empire's Asia Minor railway. Once Germany builds such a strategic railway successfully, Germany's influence in the Balkans will skyrocket in the future. Speaking of which, the Ottoman Empire was really lucky. First Britain and France, then Germany, successively supported the Ottoman Empire out of strategic considerations. The railways built by the Germans to help the Ottomans will strengthen the Ottomans' territorial control over the country and promote the economic growth of the Ottomans. This is undoubtedly bad news for Greece. However, Greece couldn't stop the Germans. After all, what the Ottoman Empire can give, Greece can't give. After Greece's expansion in 1896, its territory has reached nearly 100,000 square kilometers, but its population is only about 2.5 million. Albania, which is now controlled by Greece, is not a densely populated place, with more than 20,000 square kilometers and only 300,000 people, which is considered a vast area and sparsely populated. Moreover, among the three Balkan countries, Bulgaria, Greece, and Serbia, among which Bulgaria has the largest population, reaching 3.5 million. The population of Bulgaria is around 2.9 million now. Greece's population problem has become a major obstacle to the country's development. On November 9, Prime Minister Alexandros organized a cabinet meeting to discuss population issues. Constantine attended instead of a King George the Prime Minister's mansion, in the chamber. The main purpose of this meeting is to find a solution to the sparse population of Greece. Prime Minister Alexandros, who was sitting opposite Constantine, said first, the population of Greece was very tight before, and the taxation was so high. The pressure on the survival of the Greek people was very high, which led to thousands to tens of thousands of prime-age people in Greece who immigrated to other countries every year, complained Mavromichalis, the Minister of Administration. The number of immigrants from thousands to tens of thousands each year does not seem to be much. However, with a total population of only 2.5 million in Greece, this immigration rate is already ridiculously high. Actually, even when Albania was confiscated before, the population of Greece was far from dense, said Minister of Commerce and Industry Chris Karagias. Although everyone says that the arable land in Greece is scarce, this is true, but it does not mean that the arable land in Greece has been fully developed and utilized until now. Thessaly still has a large area of wasteland that no one cultivates. I visited Thessaly before and saw that large arable land was deserted, and some farmers kept sheep there in order to increase their income. Karagias shook his head and sighed. What is this called? China still imports a large amount of food every year. Importing rice from Congo is also considered an import, but there is no human race on the land in the country. In fact, this is one of the reasons why Constantine strongly supported the reform before, since Greece was an agricultural country before. Agricultural tax was the main financial revenue of Greece. While Greece had an army of 50,000 people, due to the special terrain of the peninsula, it had to maintain the existence of a navy, and the government expenditure was high. However, almost all the financial burdens are on the shoulders of farmers. Greece, a country with scarce arable land, has a plain of about 8,000 square kilometers in the Thessaly region. There is still a considerable part of the land that is not cultivated. It is because the tax pressure is too great. After paying taxes, who would be interested in farming if they were only able to feed themselves? And Greece is quite special. There are a large number of Greeks who are engaged in the shipping industry, well informed, and when the pressure is really unbearable, they will choose to emigrate overseas, especially North America. This is also one of the main reasons for the sluggish population growth in Greece. Although the tax system has been revised, there will be no effect in a short period of time, Alexandros said. In this case, the government should encourage the people to cultivate arable land, Constantine said quickly. Generally speaking, the fertility rate of farmers is higher than that of workers. Also, I heard that there are many swamps in the coastal areas of Albania. From the feedback from the army, those swamps can completely drain water and become fertile farmland. Under the notice of the Ottoman Empire, the Albania region was impoverished, and the situation was very similar to that of Greece. Originally, there was not much arable land. Due to the pressure of taxation, there were still many arable land in a barren state. At the same time, in order to encourage fertility, we will give certain material rewards to those Greek families who have given birth to multiple children. The current MSL population in Greece is quite large. The Greek government must pay attention to the population problem. In any case, it must maintain the status of the main ethnic group of the Greeks. This cannot be shaken in the slightest. If a country does not have a theme nation, in Europe, where nationalism was deeply rooted in the hearts of the people at the end of the 19th century, it is very easy to fall into internal chaos and serious internal friction. On this point, the Austro-Hungarian Empire made a statement: population ratio of Austria-Hungary, Germanic 24%, Hungarian 20%, Czech 13%, Poles 10%, Ukrainian 8%, Romanian 6%, Croats 5%, Slovaks 4%, Serbs 4%, Slovenian 3%, Italian 3%. In order to maintain the existence of the empire, a unique dual empire was formed. The total number of the two main ethnic groups, the Germans and the Magyars, could not exceed 50%, and they continued to argue with each other. It gives the impression of a weak fat man. With the expansion of Greece, the population problem has also become more serious. In the MSL of Albania alone, there are 250,000 people. As long as the majority of the Greeks can be maintained, even if there are more ethnic groups in Greece in the future, they will not be able to make any waves. Just like the black problem in the United States, although it has always been a hidden concern, the white people in the United States have always been the main ethnic group in the United States, accounting for more than 60% of the share. Even if black people keep making noise, you reading www.you.com, as long as there is no problem with the number of whites, blacks will not become the trend. On the Semi-Urkan Peninsula, where Greece is located, various ethnic groups live mixed together. As long as Greece still has the idea of expanding in the Balkan Peninsula, the number of ethnic groups in Greece will increase. In order to prevent Greece from becoming a multi-ethnic country like the Austro-Hungarian Empire, it is necessary to maintain the dominant position of the Greeks, and the proportion must not be lower than 60%. Constantine solemnly said to the cabinet ministers, once it is lower than this number, it will cause all kinds of ethnic problems. Everyone nodded in agreement. His Royal Highness is right, Alexandros said. Therefore, in the future, the fertility encouragement in Greece will mainly refer to the Greeks. Since the defeat of the Ottoman Empire in 1896, the Macedonian region has been in chaos, and the Ottoman Empire could not effectively control the situation in Macedonia. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Ottoman was powerless to keep Macedonia. It is an important city in Macedonia, and it is also a city with a majority of non-Greeks. There are hundreds of thousands of Jews living there, and it is the largest Jewish city in the world. If Greece does not have an absolute majority of the main ethnic group, it is difficult to measure the pros and cons of annexing such a place. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 157, Big Government Move. After the cabinet meeting, the Greek government issued a population policy, Greek families with 4 or more children will receive 50 drachma of childcare allowances per month until these children reach the age of 18. At the same time, there was also an executive order to encourage land reclamation, the land grant decree. From now on, after the Greeks have reclaimed wasteland, as long as the area does not exceed 2 hectares and has been cultivated continuously for 5 years, the ownership of these cultivated land will be owned by the settlers. These lands are not limited to the wasteland in Greece, but also include the newly acquired part of Greece in Macedonia, the Epirus region, the wasteland in the Albania region, and especially the swampy wetlands along the coast of Albania. With the reform of the government, after the Greek government was given the right to tax the rich, the finances have been assured, and the government has also made major moves. Peloponnese, in an ordinary olive grove, Dad Ankales excitedly ran into the olive grove, waving a government brochure in his hand, leaned back, rushed to his father who was standing on the wooden ladder, raised his head to pick olives, and shouted, the government's brochure. Morales looked down at his excited son, wiped the sweat from his face, and asked in doubt, Ankales, what's the matter? The government's brochure says that veterans are encouraged to go to Albania to reclaim wasteland, Ankales explained while handing the brochure to his father. What's the nonsense? Albania? You are alone, the mountains are high and the road is far away. What kind of land can you cultivate in Albania? It's good not to starve to death. Go down the A-shaped ladder, do. You think it's easy to open up the wasteland? When you get to the barren mountains and fields, with a hoe, in what year can you cultivate a piece of land that can be cultivated? Moraidinus blamed, you don't think about any ideas. After these 2 days, I have finished picking the fruit in the olive grove. Together with you, I will go to the shipping companies in the port of Piraeus. In previous years, these companies needed a lot of seafarers. Yes, the salary is not bad, you can go overseas and make a foray. Ankales, now 19, responded to the government's call to serve in the army during the War of 1896. After the war, because he had no intention of developing in the army, he took a pension of the army 500 drachma, and has been retired and demobilized for 2 months. I didn't go alone, but under the management and organization of the army, everyone went to Albania together and worked together to reclaim those wastelands, Ankales explained to his father. In order to take care of the army, under the planning of Constantine, the general staff of the army planned to organize those soldiers who were retired and had no other jobs to open up wasteland in Albania. It can not only increase the local Greek population, dilute the number of MSL, but also effectively develop the land of Albania at the same time. The 4 nobles who were enfeoffed in Greece before, and their noble fiefs, ranging from 1,000 mu to 2,000 mu, were all in Albania. There is another purpose to organize retired soldiers to open up wasteland together, that is, to imitate the advanced experience of Western Europe and organize agricultural cooperatives. After entering the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution brought advanced agricultural production technology. And traditional agriculture also changed. Some small and medium-sized farms, due to their lack of strength, generally need to increase production, improve agricultural production techniques, and maintain agricultural prices in order to cope with foreign competitors due to the unequal power. Some businessmen always intend to buy agricultural products at low prices, while at the same time selling seeds and tools to small farmers at high prices. Therefore, these small and medium farmers urgently need to unite and strive for common interests. The purpose of organizing soldiers to open up wasteland in Greece this time is to explore the experience of modern agricultural cooperatives. Hearing that his son said that it was the army organization's pioneering work, Moraidinus's expression softened a little. The second son, Ankales, is 19 years old. According to tradition, his main property should be handed over to the eldest son to inherit. On December 21, 1897, Ankales, under the organization of the general staff and other companions, took a boat to the port of Lora under the organization of the retired lieutenant, Tagorius. Ankales and 500 companions disembarked the next morning, everyone lined up in a queue, carrying shovels on their shoulders and pulling 2 draft horses, and walked out of the city of Delora. After about 10 minutes, the captain leading the way took everyone to a stream and beckoned everyone to put down their tools. Ankales looked at the lush woods around him with a blank expression. Captain Tagorius, is this our destination? Haha, Ankales. What do you think we are here for? We are here to open up wasteland. Tagorius, with a beard, patted the bewildered Ankales on the shoulder. Ankales was really caught off guard. He originally thought the destination would be a remote village, but he didn't expect it to be in a wilderness. Seeing that everyone was helping to place things, Ankales curiously walked into the sparse woods, only to feel soft under his feet. At first he thought it was a thick layer of fallen leaves on the ground, until the shoes felt wet, and when he looked down, only to find the ground under his feet, black muddy water gushing out. "Oh, why is there water in the ground?" Ankales said in surprise. www.wooksiaspit.com. This is the coastal swamp in Albania, how can there be no water? Captain Degris watched Ankales enter the woods, worried he'd get bogged down in the quagmire and just follow while speaking. He stretched out his hand and pulled Angelus back. "Don't go into the woods casually. If you accidentally fall into the quagmire and no one can help you, it will be fatal." Angelus, who was in his 30s, had already learned about the situation from the army's notice before he set off. Because of the occlusion of leaves and weeds, it looks like a hard ground on the surface, but it is actually very dangerous. "But, Lieutenant, how can such land be used for farming? Did we come to the wrong place?" Angelus asked curiously. Degorius took Angelus to the front of a drawing horse, patted the water pump on it, and said, "Why did the military give us these pumps?" "It's just to drain these swamps so that we can farm them." At this moment, two young men walked over with a wooden box in both hands. Angelus stepped forward to watch. There were 20 or 30 chicks in the cardboard box, and 2 piglets in the wooden box. Degorius said while unloading the water pump from the horse, "We have to speed up the progress. The military has a policy to support us. A regiment stationed in Vlora City will give priority to buying food from us in the future, please. Remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 158, Meet the Albanian Elite. As long as the water in the swamp is drained, and then these forests are cut down, this land will be a very fertile farmland thanks to the humus of plants and trees over the years." Degorius encouraged everyone. At 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, the sun shines through the gaps in the woods and hides the ground in bunches. Unknown birds in the woods chirp softly. The cold wind blows, bringing bursts of chills. Degorius looked at the busy people in front of him. This ordinary working life made the lieutenant's inner satisfaction almost overflow. After the baptism of a war, the cruelty of the war left a deep imprint on Lieutenant Degorius' heart, and he felt inexplicably tired from his military career. After hearing that his colleagues in the army were discussing the matter of organizing retired soldiers to reclaim wasteland, Degorius took the initiative to sign up. Looking at the busy scene in front of him, Degorius thought of what he had heard from the army, about the government's idea of establishing an agricultural cooperative. In order to adapt to the agricultural development under the new situation, establish a cooperative and independent relationship between small farms. Production cell one-stop agricultural cooperatives, effectively use the limited agricultural resources in Greece, and improve agricultural production efficiency. After the idea of making achievements in the army gradually disappeared, and after a brief period of confusion, he felt that he had found another goal to fight for. Shaking his head, he threw out the chaotic thoughts in his mind, gathered everyone together, and shouted, "Our agricultural cooperative of 500 people is established today. Although we will not have to fight on the battlefield in the future, but here is a new battlefield for our struggle in the future. Our group is the first batch of cooperative farms organized by the logistics department. Within this year, we will be able to receive 20,000 drachma of material subsidies, but we will depend on ourselves in the future. Everyone works together, and the land reclaimed will be equally distributed to the members. The 500 of us will be organized into a corporate farm to maximize everyone's benefits, unite, buy seeds and farm implements, harvest and sell them together. In order to make full use of the output of the land, we will also build a farm, raising some pigs and chickens. All this output, including grain, meat and eggs, will not only supply ourselves, but will also be sold to the army stationed in the city of Vlora, and if there is enough output, we can even sell it at the market ourselves." Most of the retired soldiers with Ankales are young people between 18 and 22 years old. They are at the age of vigorous blood. The lieutenant said that the company-style agricultural production makes everyone feel very novel. Farming with traditional farmers, a small plot of land, or the form of a tenant's lease of a landlord's land, is completely different. After everyone's enthusiasm was mobilized, there was a busy scene in the swamp forest. A reclamation group of 500 people worked together. It only took 1 month to clean up about 50 hectares of trees and weeds. The silt water is pumped into the creek under the command of Lieutenant Degorius. Everyone transported soil from the mound to fill the depression in the ground. On February 3rd, Ankales drove a gasoline tractor and entered the farm. Dada, wow, what is this, a steam tractor? It doesn't seem like it. When a steam tractor is running, coal is added, Unseen. Machine. Yes, yes, Angelus, what kind of machine is this, and where did it come from? Everyone was attracted by a machine they had never seen before, and gathered around the tractor, discussing enthusiastically. Angelus, who was sitting in the driver's seat, showed off his face to everyone. How about the tractor sponsored by the logistics department for our farm? It's much lighter than a steam tractor. What can this thing do? Whatever you can do, it can dare, plow, sow, harvest, thresh, and as long as it is loaded with different farm implements, it can complete different farm work. Angelus happily showed off to everyone. In fact, these are all repetitions of what Lieutenant Gregorius said. Constantine heard from the ambassador in New York that American farmers were using tractors for agricultural production, and he was one of 10 tractors purchased from the American Hartball Company. These tractors use a bedroom gasoline engine. The output power of the traction lever is 12.5 kilowatts, and the output power of the pulley is 22.1 kilowatts, which is habitually called the 17 to 30 type. With the help of this tractor, our farming is much easier. This guy can cultivate half a hectare of land in an hour, Lieutenant Gregorius, who followed behind, said to everyone. With the help of this tractor, the reclamation team can devote more energy to the breeding of pigs and chickens. Moreover, the manure produced by pigs and chickens can also be used on farms to fertilize fields. With everyone's help, everyone scrambled to install a steel plow on the tractor, eager to see how the tractor worked. According to the plan, the Greek government will end the military rule in Albania. Officials sent by the government gradually took over the cities of Albania because King George was old and frail. He could not stand the pain of traveling by sea, and Albania did not have a train. Therefore, King George entrusted Constantine to visit Albania. Therefore, on February 12, 1898, Constantine took the battleship Congo to Durrës, a port city in central Albania near the Adriatic coast. After the Congo docked, I saw 2 rows of neatly dressed officers on the dock, waiting in full force. After Metaxas saluted Constantine, he said loudly, "Your Highness is welcome to come and inspect. Long time no see." Metaxas Constantine was also full of joy when he saw the old acquaintance. "How is your 2nd Division doing recently? Is there any news here?" "Staying in Athens. The news about Albania is all second-hand news. After the army occupied Albania, it wiped out some bandit armed forces, and now it has been sorted out." After the greeting, Constantine rode into Durrës with the officers who came to greet him at the pier. This city is not so much a city as it is a small town. The prosperity has nothing to do with it. On both sides of the street, there are some low-rise buildings made of stones, mottled and dilapidated, a scene of dilapidation. The street was deserted, and the hooves of Dada were unusually loud. As we were driving, a flock of sheep approached us and stopped in the middle of the road. The baa sounded one after another, and the strong smell of sheep made people suffocate. Behind the flock, a dark-faced shepherd with a tangled head and a whip in his hand drives the flock with a crack. Seeing that Constantine and his party were brightly dressed and riding a tall horse, they looked flustered. With his left hand covering his mouth and nose, Constantine rushed his horse out of the flock. Metaxas followed closely and said, "Your Highness, after hearing the news that you are going to visit Durrës, some Albanians have come to visit you. Do you want to meet them now?" After asking the sheep, Constantine frowned and said, "Where are they?" With the whip in Metaxas' hand, he pointed to the most conspicuous building on the street in the distance, and said, "There, go and send people to the army camp." Constantine said to Metaxas. Having said that, surrounded by the officers, they headed to the military camp outside the city because the space in the city was too small to accommodate the 10,000-strong army of the 1st Division. It was stationed on a plain outside the city. There are only 2 streets in Durrës, and it takes a few minutes to get out of the town. In front of the military academy, several Barbanian guests finally came to Constantine. After the greeting, Metaxas introduced the identities of the people to Constantine one by one: Phryane, Toptani, Verach, Verona, Jamali, etc. "Your Highness, some of these people are big landowners in Albania, and some are nationalists in Albania," Metaxas whispered beside Constantine. "Okay, let's talk about the official meeting later. Gentlemen, since you have come to the camp of the 2nd Division, you might as well follow me to review the 2nd Division." Constantine said without waiting for everyone to speak. After several Albanians made eye contact with each other, they looked at Constantine, who was already walking in front, and could only helplessly follow behind on the school field. The blue and white cross flag of Greece fluttered in the wind. The soldiers of a regiment of the 2nd Division, fully armed, lined up solemnly, standing with their heads held high, their eyes straight ahead, rifles in their hands, and sharp bayonets. Under the sunlight, their eyes hurt from shaking from a distance. It looks like a rain of spears, shocking people's hearts as expected of the troops that have undergone the baptism of war. During the review, the chilling air came to the face, making people shudder. Constantine led a few uneasy Albanian visitors to inspect this elite second division of the Greek army. "A few of you came to visit, what's the matter?" After entering the conference room in the tent, everyone took their seats, and Constantine asked first. Phryane, Toptani, Verici, and Verona are the big landowners representing Albania. The land owned by these big families together accounts for half of Albania's current arable land. Metaxas quietly introduced to Constantine, as for Jamali, although this man has been serving as an official in the government of the Sultan in Constantinople, he himself is an Albanian. After hearing these words, Constantine already had some guesses about the purpose of these people in front of him. Several people were silent for a few seconds before waking up from the shock brought by the Greek army. Before anyone could speak, Jamali said first, "Your Highness, how does the Greek government plan to settle Albania?" As a nationalist, after hearing the news that Albania was occupied by Greece, Jamali lamented the ill-fated Albania. Now the Albanian territories, Albania and Kosovo, are controlled by the Greeks and the Ottomans respectively, which is even more unfavorable for Albania to strive for independence. On the Albania issue, the two countries tacitly cooperate to suppress Albanian nationalists. Semele has been an official in Constantinople for a long time, but he is indeed an Albanian nationalist who has been appealing to the Ottoman Empire to allow Albania to self-govern. He has been running for the cause of Albania's independence for a long time and is very famous in the Albanian region. Metaxas whispered beside Constantine. Mr. Jamali, isn't it obvious that Albania will be an administrative region of Greece in the future? Constantine said, of course. However, Your Highness, Albania is an independent nation. I ask you, Your Highness, to allow Albania to be autonomous, and we can pay taxes to the Greek government, just like the Greeks. Although he knew that Constantine could not agree, but, as Albanian, Jamali still wants to try it, allows the publication of books and newspapers in the Albanian language and the use of the Albanian language in education. Hearing that the tax was paid once, several other Albanians, Phryane, Toptani, Verici, and Verona, glared at Jamali. As we all know, Greece's tax system has been reformed, and taxes are paid according to a proportional system. In this case, those Albanians who have been looted by Ottoman taxpayers will not have to pay any money at all, because they do not have much income at all. Big landowners like them will become the main force in paying taxes. Of course, most of the Albanian people would cry with joy if they knew that the Greek government would collect taxes in this way. For a long time, the taxpayers of the Ottoman Empire have been squeezing the people of Albania. These taxpayers, after obtaining the right to pay taxes, levied taxes for their own interests. However, only a small part of them were turned over to the Ottoman treasury, and most of them went into the taxpayers' own pockets. Jamali's suggestion was not discussed with a few people at all. Several people were worried that Jamali's other suggestions would offend the Crown Prince Constantine. Mr. Jamali, in my eyes, there are no Albanians. There are only Greeks who converted to Islam and Greeks who believed in Catholicism and Orthodoxy. That's all. If you all come to meet with this intention, I'm sorry, I think I've made it clear. Constantine leaned back on the high-backed chair, looking at these people coldly, not speaking. Constantine's decisive refusal did not exceed Jamali's expectations. Seeing the abnormal atmosphere of the meeting, Phryane quickly said, Your Highness, our Phryane family has no such idea. We are willing to swear allegiance to Greece, as long as you agree to contract the tax-inclusive rights of Albania to us. Jamali looked at his compatriots who were fascinated by the interests in front of him. Betrayed the nation for money, his eyes were spitting fire, and he cursed them for being shameless. www.uxiaspit.com. Let me reiterate that Albania will be Greece in the future. An administrative region of the country, like Thessaly and Peloponnese, will of course pay taxes according to the Greek system, Constantine said solemnly to several people. In the future, the taxation of Albania will be done by the tax department of the Greek government, and there is no such thing as a taxpayer. Seeing the representatives of the big landowners in Phryane with dissatisfied faces, Constantine tapped coldly. I heard that several big families in Albania occupy half of the arable land in Albania. From now on, just as he was about to say that Greece would gradually deprive these big landowners of their illegal land, Metaxas suddenly interjected, His Royal Highness, the Catholics in Albania have a close relationship with Rome, and these Catholic churches have a lot of assistance. The funds come from Italy. The Catholic Church uses these funds to open schools and teach Italian education. It is difficult to say whether there is the will of the Italian government behind this. Moreover, in southern Italy, there are still a large number of Albanians living. It's better not to push the local family forces in Albania, otherwise these people will jump over the wall and collude with the Italians, adding a lot of twists and turns. Today's Greece, just going through a war. It's best not to give Italy a chance. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 159, Results of the Talks. Seeing Constantine talking about their land issues, the representatives of several big landlords immediately tensed their hearts and looked at Constantine nervously. These people were able to become big landowners because they had worked for the Ottomans for generations, were responsible for collecting taxes for the Ottoman government, or acted as officials, relying on the power in their hands to seize a large amount of Albanian land, so that by now, half of Albania's land is in the hands of several large families. Judging from the words of several people, it is obvious that these big landowners and Albanian nationalists have different demands due to their interests for these big landowners, whether it's Ottoman or Greece. It doesn't really matter who will rule Albania, as long as they don't think of their land. Obviously, nationalists like Jamali disapprove of such a large class of landowners. They want to fight for the independence of Albania. Nearly half of a country's land is in the hands of several big families. This is an unimaginable matter. In order to unite and win over more Albanians, nationalists like Jamali advocate certain land reforms, which is a sure thing. Just imagine, if nothing has changed after Albania's independence, for the poor, who make up the majority of Albania's population, what does it mean to be independent? After hearing what Metaxas said, these thoughts flashed through Constantine's mind one by one. Verona watched Constantine remain silent, gritted his teeth, and said, "Your Highness, as long as you can guarantee that you will not carry out land reform in Albania, our pharaoh family is willing to convert to Orthodoxy. We can send the young children of the family to the University of Athens, or even the Athens Army Academy, to receive the most Orthodox Greek education." As soon as his words came out, even the representatives of other landlords were stunned and sighed. The Verona family really can let go. But think about it, now it is Greece, not the Ottomans, who rule Albania. In a country like Greece where the Orthodox faith is the mainstream, the large landowners of the MSL family, who control a large amount of land in Albania, seem to be too conspicuous, and will be cleaned up by the political forces of Greece sooner or later. After conversion, he can better integrate into Greek society. Thinking of this, the other three representatives of the landlords, Phryane, Toptani, and Verici, also nodded in agreement with Pharaoh's suggestion. His Royal Highness, as long as you can agree that the Albanian language can be used for education and publication, we can agree that the Albanian language can only be spelled in Greek letters in the future, Jamali said helplessly. Such a compromise is also out of helplessness. At first, the Albanians were not united, and now these big landowners have put aside the Albanian nationalist forces and have reached a separate deal with the Greek government. Second, in the Russo-Turkish War of 1878, due to the misjudgment of the situation by the Albanian Democrats at that time, they thought that the Ottoman Empire would inevitably be under the joint attack of Russia and its Slavic allies, Bulgaria and Serbia. They have a good chance for Albania to fight for independence. So, when Russia and the Ottoman Empire fought fiercely, the Albanian nationalists took advantage of the Ottoman Empire's lack of time to care about Albania. Under the organization of the Prizren Alliance, the Albanian National Armed Forces began to attack the Ottoman Empire's government agencies in Afghanistan, refusing to pay taxes. Wait for the uprising. As a result, after the end of the war between Russia and Austria, at the Berlin Conference in 1881, the situation was reversed. Almost all countries sided with Russia and supported the Ottoman Empire. After the Ottoman Empire freed its hands from the war, it was naturally unable to spare these guys who fell into trouble and stabbed in the back. After all, traitors are more hateful than enemies, and they suppressed Albania's independence activities. The coalition formed by the Albanian Democrats at that time, and also the main leader of this uprising, the Prizren Alliance, whose members were almost slaughtered by the Ottoman government, a total of 2,000 or 3,000 people, were either killed directly, or he died in prison, and there are only some small fish and shrimp left, and it can't become a big climate in Albania. There are only 200,000 to 300,000 people in total. The elite class was almost wiped out thanks to the Ottomans. When Greece took over Albania, there was almost no resistance. All the thorns were wiped out. The nationalists represented by Jamali, whose strength is at the lowest point, really don't have much leverage to trade with Constantine. Looking at a few Albanian representatives who were soft-spoken, Constantine first agreed that he would not carry out land reform in Albania for the time being, on the condition that they converted and sent his family children to study in Greece. As for the Albanian permission issue mentioned by Jamali, Constantine was a little hesitant. In the Albanian region, it is natural to suppress the Albanian language and promote the Greek language from the Greek point of view. However, Albania is a bit special. There are hundreds of thousands of Albanians living in southern Italy, and Kosovo is also a place where Albanians have an advantage. The Greek government strongly promotes Greek in Albania and abandons the Albanian language, which will not only anger Albanians living outside Albania. At the same time, it will also make the Albanians in Greece have a strong rebellious psychology, causing some troubles. Thinking of this, Constantine said to Jamali, "If it is based on the Greek alphabet and spelled Albanian, I can agree on behalf of the Greek government to allow such Albanian to be used for education and publication, but Greece is located in the government, office and administrative language of the Albanian region is still in Greek. As for allowing the application of the Albanian language, will it become a hidden danger for Greece to rule Albania? Of course, there is a possibility, but it is not a big threat. There are only about 300,000 Albanians in Greece, www.uxiaspit.com, and a considerable number of them are pro-Greek Orthodox Christians. Secondly, a small language used by hundreds of thousands of people cannot threaten the Orthodox status of Greek. Moreover, the Albanian language is very immature. She doesn't even have words yet, which is far from enough to compete with the extremely mature Greek that has developed for 2,000 years. Such a language is fine for daily communication, but when it is used for scientific and cultural communication, it will encounter many difficulties. What's more, Albanian is based on the Greek alphabet in Constantine's view. With the breakthrough and innovation of communication technology and transportation, the exchange of information between Greece and Albania, the flow of people, and the convenience of material movement, Greek will eventually defeat Albanian. Albanian, based on the Greek alphabet, is more like a dialect of Greek for nationalists. This is also a huge improvement. During the Ottoman Empire, the Albanian language was allowed to be used in public education and publications alone. The Albanians struggled for decades and failed to achieve it. Both sides took a step back, and both partially achieved their goals. First, slow down the Albanians. When Greece has digested the newly acquired land, the initiative will still be in the hands of Greece. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 160, Divide Resources. After seeing that everyone present reached an agreement, the atmosphere in the room immediately relaxed. For some time to come, the Greek government will invest heavily in Albania, especially in infrastructure. Albania's backwardness will soon change, Constantine told several Albanian delegates. Jamali and the other 4 representatives of the big landowners had very different reactions to these words. For these big landowners, the economic improvement of Albania is very beneficial to them. At the very least, the food produced on their land has a wider market than before. For nationalists, the more Greece invests in Albania, the tighter its control over Albania will be. On March 2nd, the exploration team originally organized by the Greek government, which lasted for nearly a year, covered almost all the mountains and rivers in Albania, and finally completed the exploration of Albania's mineral resources on March 15th. The general director of the exploration operation, Dr. Mio Ariston, will be in Tirana to give a brief report on the distribution of minerals in Albania. People from the Greek economic circles flocked to get the news. Constantine was also prepared to attend this meeting on March 15th. In a hotel near the port of Tirana, Dr. Mio Ariston, with a white beard, presented a report to the large audience. In Albania now, there are almost no traces of industry. The economy is almost 100% dependent on agriculture, and the agricultural production technology is very backward. The level of road traffic is poor. The main means of transportation are horses and cattle. As for healthcare facilities, very few, more than 90% are illiterate. Dr. Mio Ariston first introduced the basic situation of Albania. The types of mineral resources are petroleum, asphalt, lignite, limestone, chromium, copper and nickel, etc. There was a buzzing sound in the conference room, and everyone was talking about these minerals except for lignite and bauxite. Most of the resources needed by the Greek industry are imported. Everyone was shocked when they heard that there are copper reserves in Albania. After the discussion in the conference room subsided, the doctor continued, Albania's most abundant mineral is chrome ore. According to our estimate, the reserves are 1 million tons, mainly in the form of chromite, copper, Mines are mainly concentrated in Kirbyans in the Mildita district, Jajan in the Cooks district and Tucci in the Puk district. Coal is concentrated in the Dirana district, Memory in the Tepelina district, and Baldranavo in the Korka district. Among them, Baldranavo has the largest reserves. Hearing the news of the coal mines, Scalloway of the steel mill asked happily, "Doctor, are there any hard coal reserves in these coal mines?" Looking at the excited Scalloway, the doctor shook his head. "It's all lignite." Having said that, Dr. Muiriston left the venue. Except for oil and copper mines, other mineral resources are of little significance to Greece in the past. Almost all the copper mines needed by Greece depended on the high-quality copper mines in the Congo. Since the main copper mines in Congo are located in the center of the southern African continent, if you want to transport these copper mines to Greece, you have to travel thousands of kilometers by train within the Congo alone, which makes the cost of producing copper in Greece very high. Previously, the Greek Army Quartermaster Department had to wait for several years in order to store enough shells and bullets. Now that there are copper mines in Albania, Greece does not have to rely entirely on Congo for the source of copper mines. Carl, the general manager of Tesla Power Company, was eager to try when he heard that there was lignite distribution in Albania. Although the company is already building a hydropower station in Albania, the hydropower station can be put into practical application in theory. However, the investment cycle of hydropower stations is very long, and the capital required is also very high. For Tesla Power Company, which has just made a profit, it still owes a lot of debts to major banks, and it can still be put into use quickly and generate fast profit. Thermal power plants most attractive. The current Tesla Power Company is currently the largest coal miner in Greece, with an annual lignite mining volume of 450,000 tons. Since lignite has no other uses other than power generation, there are almost no buyers for lignite mines in Greece, except Tesla Power Company, which is a big consumer. Therefore, the lignite mines discovered in Albania will not compete with Tesla Power Company at all. As for oil, the news that the Zipeo Foundation and the Nobel family are cooperating to develop oil in Albania has long spread, and I am afraid that no one will compete with such a rival in this way. The most valuable mineral deposits in Albania are copper ores for nickel ore and chrome ore. Such rare metals do not have much value at present because they are used very little in the international market. Gaubai Rui looked at Constantine and said, "Your Highness, do you have any suggestions for copper mines in Albania?" Constantine shook his head without making a sound. Oil, the fattest piece of Albania's resources, has already entered the hands of the royal family, and it would be too greedy to attack copper mines. Moreover, after the supply of copper mines in Greece is backed up by the reserves of Congo, the copper demand of the Greek army can already be satisfied. After seeing the reaction of Constantine, the other members of the big Greek families who came to the venue were happy, but the royal family did not take action, which means that they have a chance to get a share of the copper mine. www.uxiaspit.com. In the end, under the organization of Alpha Bank's Kosterblum and the Greek National Bank's Gaubai Rui, they formed a copper ore company together and prepared to jointly bid for the copper mine from the Greek government. Although Greece's finances have made great progress after the tax reform, due to excessive spending, the Greek government's pockets are still tight. The mining license of mineral resources discovered here in Albania is also a good income for the Greek government, which can alleviate the urgent need. In the end, the oil development rights in the city of Feri were bought by the Greek oil company controlled by the royal family for 5 million drachmas. The copper mines in Albania were acquired by the Southern European Copper Company, which was funded by major Greek families, at a price of 2 million drachmas. According to the requirements of the industry, the funds obtained by the Greek government will first be used for the laying of railway lines in Albania, so as to solve the backward traffic problems in Albania as soon as possible. In order to put the railway in Albania into operation as soon as possible, the railway will start construction in sections, starting from Albania on one side, and extending the original railway northward from Greece on the other side. Among them, the railway laid in Albania will be opened as soon as possible to facilitate the circulation of Greek goods in Albania. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 161, Shipbuilding. After returning to Athens from Albania, Constantine and Kostebro went to visit the Athens shipyard. With the development of the Congolese colony, the demand for ships in Greece remains high. While the Greek shipbuilding industry is very weak, the Athens shipyard is located near the port of Piraeus. Under the leadership of the shipyard manager Ravenna, the two entered the number 1 dock to visit a bulk carrier belonging to the Greek Congolese Corporation under construction. I saw the steel frames on both sides of the dock. Workers stood on them, holding tools in their hands, and working around the hull of the prototype. The strong flames produced by welding made people's eyes sore. Constantine, who was wearing a helmet, resisted the discomfort of his eyes and asked, Ravenna, how much displacement does this ship have? Where do the boilers and steam engines you use to make ships, as well as the propellers, come from? The ship is about 3,500 tons. As for the coal-fired boiler and steam engine, as well as the propeller, they are all imported from England. Ravenna replied awkwardly. These key components are all imported from the United Kingdom, and the Athens shipyard is responsible for building a hull and assembling it. There is no technical content at all. What are your shipyard's orders? Constantine said with a frown. In addition to some bulk carriers, our bed factory will also build some 100-ton fishing boats for some Greek fishermen. The manager of Ravenna replied embarrassedly. As the largest shipyard in Greece, Athens shipyard does not live up to its name. After walking out of the shipyard, after a moment of silence, Constantine asked curiously, Greece is also a shipping power, why is our shipbuilding industry so weak? Coster Bloom also sighed and said, Greece is indeed a big country in the maritime industry, but the merchant ships in the hands of Greek shipowners are all purchased from abroad, especially the United Kingdom. The British shipbuilding industry is developed and the price of ships is low. Industry has only begun to develop in recent years, and in industries such as shipbuilding, Greece is naturally very backward. In recent years, ocean-going ships have been developing towards large-scale development. I know that your Greek Wangerlis Corporation has a fleet of 100,000 tons of total tonnage, which is mainly responsible for the route from Congo to Europe. Constantine looked at Costa Brow said, It's true that the bigger the ship, the lower the transportation cost. Everyone naturally likes to use the larger tonnage ship for transportation. The large-scale cargo ship is indeed the trend of the shipping industry now, Costa Brother said. Since this is the case, decommission your ships with serious aging and high operating costs, and hand over the orders for building new ships to the Athens shipyard. Manager Ravenna, don't be too happy. The technical level of your Ravenna shipyard should also be improved. You should also try to produce those ship subsystems with high technical requirements, Constantine said to Ravenna. In fact, the current shipyards do not require high technical level, but do some assembly work. The real winners in the shipbuilding industry are those ship subsystem providers, such as coal-fired boilers, propellers, and steam engine manufacturers, and shipyards are not only profitable low, the shipyard itself is nothing but hard-earned money, and even in the pre-fearless era when everyone was scrambling to expand the navy, the profit of the shipyard was generally not more than 25%. Moreover, the bed builder also needs to take a lot of risks. After all, the current ship construction is paid in installments according to the stage of construction. If there is an accident in the middle, the ship buyer cannot or is unwilling to pay any more, and those who are still on the slipway are still on the slipway. If there are ships under construction, the shipyard will be in a dilemma: either find a new buyer, and the shipyard will build it, or the semi-finished ship can only be dismantled. The reason why Constantine paid attention to the shipbuilding industry in Greece was also determined by the actual situation of Greece. Greece is a peninsula country with a long and narrow coastline and an export-oriented economy. Greece itself is also a big country in the shipping industry. Under these conditions, it is a pity that Greece does not develop the shipbuilding industry. His Royal Highness, the biggest problem in the Greek shipbuilding industry is actually the steel production in Greece, the manager of Ravenna said helplessly. You also know that the shipbuilding industry needs to consume a lot of steel, and Greece's annual steel production is not high, just like the cargo ship with a displacement of about 3,500 tons on the slipway. Such a large ship will consume 3,000 tons of steel. And how much is Greece's annual steel production? 200,000 tons, Ravenna complained. Every time the purchasers of our shipyard go to the steel plant to place an order, the manager of the steel plant, Scalloy, is reluctant to accept the order. Therefore, our shipyard is also trying to survive, and will produce some 100 tons for the fishermen in Greece. Small fishing boats that are not available, mainly used for offshore fishing. As far as I know, the government is going to carry out large-scale railway construction in the near future. As the only steel company in Greece, the products will be in short supply in the near future. An important project such as railway construction will definitely consume a considerable part of the steel plant's production capacity. After a while, he went back to the issue of resource shortage. The problem of steel shortage always needs to be solved. Therefore, your shipyard should also prepare for upgrading and transformation. It is precisely because of the shortage of resources in Greece that a shipyard like you has no technical content at all, and the added value of product technology is low, so you have to turn adequate supply of resources. It is impossible for Greece to rely on imported ships to meet its shipping needs. Besides, with such backward technology as you, it's impossible to take orders for the Navy's warships. Constantine said it is well known that the Turkish Navy took a huge advantage of buying warships. In the history of the original time and space, the British confiscated the 2 super dreadnought ships purchased by the Ottoman Empire and built in full before World War I, and entered the British Navy directly. When a weak country buys warships from a strong country, not only does it cost a lot of money, but you are likely to be trapped. For example, the 2 warships Zenit and Dingin purchased by the Qing dynasty from Germany are test products of others. The Germans have tested many new technologies on these 2 warships. www.wuxiaspit.com. The cost will be paid for by the Qing dynasty. Not only did I spend a lot of money, but I couldn't buy good things. Greece, a country, is also unavoidable when purchasing warships. In the original historical time and space, Greece purchased a battleship Salamis from Germany. In July 1913, the Salamis officially started construction. The original plan was to hand it over to Greece 2 years later. At the end of 1914, the battleship Salamis was launched. However, the guns originally ordered in the United States, due to the outbreak of the war, the United States refused to send the weapons to Germany, on the grounds that they were worried that Germany would use these weapons in the war. As a result, it was so delayed that until the end of the war, the Greek and German Vulcan shipyards were still arguing. A lot of money was spent, and Greece did not even see the shadow of the battleship. Therefore, even if it is a shipyard in Greece, the technical level can only build one hull, and it is good to be able to assemble the various subsystems of the warship. It is nothing more than a slower time and a lower quality, but the risk is low, and at worst, it will not be directly requisitioned by the British for its own warships like Turkey. Hearing what Constantine said about the naval warships, Manager Ravenna's eyes lit up and said, "Your Highness, if our shipyard can get an order from the Navy, then the shipbuilding technology will definitely improve greatly. Please remember this book's first domain name." Mobile version reading website, Chapter 162, The Navy Under Pressure. At present, it is impossible for warships to be handed over to a low-level shipyard like you for construction. Constantine interrupted the manager of Ravenna angrily. Almost all warships used in the Greek Navy are purchased from the United Kingdom. If the Navy rashly agrees to the production of warships by the Greek shipyard, it is impossible for the Navy to agree. After all, warships and civilian ships are different. The difference between the two is not in the size of tonnage, but mainly in the sturdy structure of the hull, speed, anti-sinking, and seakeeping. Then there are reconnaissance, communication and navigation systems. Generally, ships are not as complete and advanced as naval ships. The recent task of your Athens shipyard is to receive more orders from the Greek Kongerlis Corporation to accumulate the ability to build large ships, especially the 8,000-ton ocean-going freighters that the Spanish Kongerlis Corporation needs. Recently, due to technological breakthroughs, the tonnage of ships at this time showed a rapid upward trend. At the same time, I will say hello to the Navy and ask you to undertake the construction of a few small warships and get in touch with the construction of warships. Don't think about large cruisers. Small warships, such as the Navy's offshore patrol boats and torpedo boats, can still be tried. After returning from the Athens shipyard, Constantine stopped by the naval headquarters in the port of Piraeus. Rear Admiral Constantine accumulated merits to raise his rank, is now the only general among Greek naval officers and the de facto supreme commander of the Greek Navy. General Constantine, I just returned from the Athens shipyard. Constantine went directly to Constantine's office. Seeing the dusty Constantine, Constantine said, "Your Highness, is it time for our Greek Navy to buy some new warships?" The Ottoman Navy was trapped in the lack of a navy in the war, which led to the passivity in the War of 1896, which is bound to trigger a construction boom for the Ottoman Navy. Also, our neighbor to the west, the Italian Navy, should not be underestimated. After Greece acquired Albania, the pressure on the Navy increased sharply. Constantine immediately complained when he saw Constantine's rare arrival at the naval headquarters. Albania and southern Italy face each other across the Adriatic Sea and have a long coastline that needs protection. The southern part of Italy is very close to Albania. The two sides, one east and one west, guard the gate of the Adriatic Sea, the Strait of Otranto. Whether the Greek Navy wants it or not, the threat from the Italian Navy is already imminent. According to the current capabilities of the Greek Navy, except for the two 3,000-ton Esmeralda-class ships, which are still eye-catching, other warships have little effect when facing the Italian Navy. In order to face this severe situation, it is imperative to expand the strength of the Greek navy. His Royal Highness, the talented Italian designer, Ed Altmastio, designed a 7,350-ton armored cruiser for the Italian Navy that combines firepower, armor defense and speed, and can assist battleships in the decisive battle of the fleet. Speaking of this, Cantaratus was full of helplessness. The tonnage of a single warship was almost equal to the total tonnage of the Greek navy. The disparity in strength made him unable to resist the desire at all. The performance is very good, with a displacement of only about 7,000 tons. Ed Altmastio, the Italian designer, has realized the configuration of the mainstream 10,000-ton cruiser on it, including large-caliber main guns, which are numerous in number, rapid-fire secondary guns, large areas of hardened armor protection, and moderate speed and range. It is the excellence of this type of warship that Argentina and Spain have successively purchased a total of 4 Garibaldi-class armored cruisers from Italy. At this time, the Italian Navy, in order to allow private shipyards to accumulate more construction experience, allowed the shipyard to sell the warships ordered by the Navy to foreign countries, and then rebuild one to complete the contract of the domestic Navy. The 4 warships of this class that have been built successively, although they were all named Garibaldi at the time of construction, were all sold out after the construction was completed. On the contrary, the Italian Navy has not yet obtained a warship of this class, but, according to the current situation, Greece has expanded its territory in the Balkans. After the completion of the new Garibaldi-class cruisers, they will join the Italian Navy no matter what. How should the Greek Navy respond? Cantaratus asked. The financial problems of the Greek government are already very tense. Huge foreign debts, war costs, and infrastructure investment in new territories. Despite the implementation of tax reforms and the expansion of financial resources, Greece's finances are still stretched thin. For Greece, the top priority is to digest the new territory as soon as possible, and the whole country will return to normal. In any case, the government can't afford to expand the navy now. At present, the Greek navy can only temporarily endure and adopt a defensive stance. However, there is no big allocation. Some defensive weapons can still be purchased. Cantaratus' eyes lit up and quickly said, "Your Highness, in fact, the torpedo boats purchased from the UK and the Navy have been performing well since their service. If they are used for defense, large torpedo boats are very cost-effective. The main weapon of the torpedo boat is the torpedo, which is a deadly threat to the ship due to the particularity of its destruction principle. It is an asymmetric weapon. Even a torpedo launched by a small boat, if it can hit the enemy large ships, reading www.ucanchu.com will also hit the opponent hard, which is really suitable for the current Greek Navy." Constantine agreed to this suggestion, and then told the other party what he had seen at the Athens shipyard and his intention to let his country participate in the construction of warships in the shipyard. "You can apply to Prime Minister Alexandros for funding to buy a few large torpedo boats made in England, but it is best to order 2 or 3 torpedo boats from the Athens shipyard. Although the Navy will not have sufficient funds for the past 2 years, you should not slack off. Let the technicians in your Navy design cruisers, or find suitable designs from warships of other countries, and require that they can effectively deal with the Italian Garibaldi-class armored cruisers. You can start right away when the government's finances are plentiful later." Although Constantine knew in his heart that let the Greek shipyards build warships, various important subsystems of warships, such as naval guns, coal-fired boilers and steam engines, and armored steel are basically purchased from abroad, and the Athens shipyard is no more than that. Just assemble it. However, for the Greek Navy, those purchased warships cannot always go to the UK for maintenance, and cultivate a strong domestic shipyard. Quite a bit of military spending. Thinking of this, Cantaratus agreed with Constantine's suggestion and tried his best to let the Athens shipyard accumulate some experience in the construction of warships. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 163, Refinery. While Constantine was worried about the Greek shipbuilding industry, Yakov, the manager of the Purple Robe Foundation appointed by him, returned to his home after a busy day. After chatting with his family, he entered the study with his younger brother, Gad, and wanted to consult this scholar, who is currently studying for a doctorate at the University of Athens, some knowledge about petroleum. Yakov's 29-year-old brother, Gad. After the family regained a firm foothold in Athens, the idea of entering a university for further study came into being, and went to the University of Athens to continue studying chemistry. After obtaining the approval of the Nobel family, the Purple Robe Foundation will invest its main funds in oil-related projects for a long time afterward. Although Yakov is a senior banking practitioner, he has not been exposed to the oil industry and does not know much about this emerging energy source so far, in the cooperation between the two parties. As the main funder, the head of the ZPO Foundation, Yakov is responsible for the finance of the oil company in the cooperation, and little Nobel has been in charge of other aspects. Gade, you are studying chemistry at the University of Athens. I would like to ask you, a professional, for some oil-related knowledge. Yakov looked at his younger brother, Gad, and said solemnly, after all, up to now, the royal family has invested 20 million drachmas into the ZPO Foundation, and most of them have been invested in oil companies. This behavior is very irrational for a fund of the size of the ZPO Foundation. Behavior, under normal circumstances, for the consideration of risk aversion, the investment of the fund should be dispersed as much as possible to avoid putting eggs in one basket. However, so far, the fund's investment has only been in the oil company, a decision made by Crown Prince Constantine himself, whenever he persuades Constantine not to invest heavily in oil companies out of professional ethics. At the time, Constantine always shied away from perfunctory and asked him to do it. He knew very little about this industry, and he was always uneasy, and worried that he would fail the Crown Prince's expectations, screw up the foundation, and anger the royal family. Looking at his worried brother, Yakov said, "What do you want to ask, Jade? From the perspective of your professional knowledge, what do you think of the prospect of the oil industry, and is it worth investing in?" Gard is a PhD in chemistry, but after all, he is also from a banking family. Although he chose natural science in college out of interest, he has a good understanding of financial common sense and naturally understands himself. My brother Yakov is worried about something. The oil industry is an emerging energy source. As for the prospects, you can refer to the current situation of the coal industry. After that, Gad looked at Yakov and said, since the Industrial Revolution, the use of coal has skyrocketed, and the status of coal merchants has risen. However, coal-burning steam engines can be seen everywhere, and the current large-scale application of oil is limited to lighting. There is no comparison between the two. Yakov asked, petroleum has many advantages that solid coal does not have due to its liquid advantages, such as the recent internal combustion engine. Isn't it a good example? For example, gasoline engines, because of the use of liquid gasoline as fuel, can make the volume very small, which is something that a steam engine cannot do. Can you imagine the scene of a motorcycle driver charging coal to the engine with a shovel while driving? Moreover, since the advent of the internal combustion engine, some people have been studying the use of the internal combustion engine as a power source for trains or ships. In the current industry, this is a very promising industry. Although the application of oil is not as good as coal at present, the prospects of the oil industry are very good. Yakov, you can cooperate with Nobel with confidence. When Gad said this, Yakov let out a long sigh of relief, and his uneasy heart finally had some stability. That is to say, Crown Prince Constantine is really optimistic about the oil industry. It is not without reason why he is so confident in the oil industry. After speaking, Xiang Jade said, Jade, since you are so optimistic about the future of the oil industry, why don't you come to our company for a period of internship? It's just right for your research direction, because he does not understand technology. Almost all the technical positions in the current oil companies are from the Nobel side, which makes Yakov a little worried. Recently, our company will build an oil refinery with an annual refining capacity of 80,000 tons in Feri, Albania. The Greek petroleum company has invested 12 million drachmas, which just happens to need a lot of engineers. Yakov invited to his brother, I will go on a business trip tomorrow afternoon, and I will take a boat to Feri with Mr. Nobel. Hearing Yakov's words, Gad was really moved. He is still very interested in the research on petroleum refining catalysts. As one of the frontier research topics of organic chemistry in the scientific community, it is very popular in European universities. On March 6, Gad, little Nobel, Yakov, and a dozen accompanying people came to Albania to supervise the construction of the oil refinery. This is an important factory of the Greek oil company, and it cannot be neglected. After Vlora disembarked from the ship www.wuxiaspit.com, the group took the train and went all the way to Ferry City as a planned key oil industry city. Ferry has already built a train. The city of Ferry is located between Vlora and Tirana, and the railway line connecting the two places just passes through the city of Ferry. When the group arrived at the construction site of the refinery on March 10, they could see from a distance that the refinery had just been constructed, with more than a dozen silver white metal towers and chimneys, which were particularly eye-catching. After approaching, Yakov saw a busy scene on the construction site, with various construction equipment operating in an orderly manner, and carriages transporting construction materials coming and going. Mr. Nobel, how long will it take for such a factory to be completed? Yakov, wearing a helmet, asked as he looked up at the construction site. On the scaffolding in the sky, the construction team at the site is almost all construction workers hired by little Nobel from the Caucasus region. The Nobel family made their fortune from the oil refinery, so it is natural to build the refinery. Mr. Yakov, this is a factory with a refining capacity of 80,000 tons. It will take at least 2 years for the entire project to be completed. Little Nobel, who was standing beside him, replied as a son of the Nobel family, in this cooperation with the Greek oil company, if he can perform well, he will have more right to speak in the family company in the future, and naturally he will do his best. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 164, Tractor Industry. Greece is on the verge of becoming an oil producer as the refinery begins. Then, the development of Greece's domestic industries closely related to oil has entered the countdown. In 1899, tractors were warmly welcomed by farmers. Gasoline prices were very cheap. The original tractors used gasoline engines, and the tractors imported by Greece from the United States were very popular. In 2 years, more than 400 were imported. These tractors are especially popular in those agricultural cooperatives due to the sparse population in Albania. The Greek government organized more than 20,000 people, some retired soldiers, and most of the youth who wanted to get land, to enter Albania to reclaim wasteland. The land area of agricultural cooperatives is large and coherent, so it is more convenient to use tractors when cultivating. On April 23, Constantine discussed state affairs with the Prime Minister in the conference room of the Palace of the Constitution Square. Prime Minister, I heard that the recent land reclamation activities in Albania have yielded a lot. Constantine asked Alexandros. In the past 2 years, as the government personally organized the evacuation of the population to Albania, few people have immigrated to North America. Originally planned to immigrate. After learning about the government's land bill, he actively signed up and participated in the wasteland reclamation activities. Yes, in the past 2 years, according to government statistics, more than 30,000 Greeks have immigrated to Albania, Alexandros said with relief. With the smooth progress of the reform, the civil service system in Greece has begun to take shape, and the phenomenon of high government administrative expenditure has been initially curbed, and the Greek government's fiscal revenue has increased rapidly. Tax revenue will reach a record 380 million drachmas after the government's financial resources were abundant. The Greek government strongly supported the land reclamation team in Albania and issued subsidies to various cooperatives to help them get through the initial difficult period. As far as I know, in cooperatives, tractors imported from the United States are very popular with farmers. At present, the oil refinery of Greek Petroleum Corporation in Ferry is about to be completed and will be put into normal operation soon. Does your government consider it, to support Greece's own oil-related industries? Constantine said. Even after Greece's finances were prosperous, Constantine still did not agree with the army's opinion. Under great pressure, he refused the army's request to increase military spending immediately. Currently, Europe is in a rare period of peace. With the sound of the Second Industrial Revolution, the economies of major countries are developing rapidly. In this case, Constantine still decided to use more of the government's revenue to develop the domestic economy instead of the army. Your Highness, do you mean to support the establishment of a tractor factory in Greece? Alexandros said. The United States, the world's largest arable land area, is showing terrifying agricultural potential with the help of tractors. With its vast land, the demand for tractors is more urgent than other countries. At the end of the 19th century, American tractors were not only widely welcomed by farmers in the United States, but also shined in the international market. Brazil, Argentina, Russia, and France, these agricultural powers, almost all imported tractors from the United States. In contrast, because most European countries have relatively dense populations, the demand for tractors is not so urgent. and the development of the tractor industry lags behind that of the United States. Yes, you also know that with the increase of agricultural cooperatives, the demand for tractors in Greece will further increase, Constantine said. In fact, Constantine decided to let Greece develop the tractor industry as soon as possible. In addition to the needs of agriculture, there is also a military factor, that is, the close relationship between tanks and tractors. If Greece can have a mature tractor industry, then in the subsequent European wars, the Greek army will be even more powerful. Even if you can't quickly convert a tractor into a tank, use a tractor to tow heavy artillery, or transport weapons and ammunition, it is very suitable on the battlefield. Alexandros considered Constantine's suggestion. In the past 2 years, the Greeks have reclaimed 17,000 hectares of land in Albania, almost all thanks to agricultural cooperatives. Moreover, according to the statistics of officials sent by the government to Albania, Albania's land potential is far from being fully exploited. The large area of arable land increases and the food supply is sufficient, which will lead to a reduction in the price of domestic food in Greece, which is also conducive to the government's policy of encouraging fertility, making the government's population policy more effective, and promoting the rapid growth of the Greek population. In addition, the domestic oil exploration industry in Greece has developed, so it is indeed more appropriate to support the tractor industry. Andros is a master's student in mechanics at the University of Athens in Greece. He has always been interested in machinery, especially the research on tractors. With the funding of the University of Athens, it has been going very smoothly. When news spread that the government was interested in supporting a tractor factory in Greece, Andros volunteered and applied to Prime Minister Alexandros. After getting the news, Kashistan, together with Prime Minister Alexandros, went to the outskirts of Athens in person to watch Andros' tractor demonstration. On a farm south of Athens, Constantine and the Prime Minister watched as the tractor rattled, dragging the iron plow, and plowing a deep ravine on the otherwise flat land of the farm. The Prime Minister and Constantine looked at each other and nodded to each other, and then Constantine waved to Andros on the tractor and invited him. Andros came from a large Greek family, originally from the Fanners of the Ottoman Empire, a large Greek Christian family living in Constantinople, who immigrated to Greece after Greece became independent. Mr. Andros, tell us your thoughts, Alexandros said kindly. Andros blushed, took a deep breath, calmed down, and said, actually, tractors are nothing new. After the invention of the steam engine, people have always tried to create tractors to replace farmers and lift them from heavy loads. Freed from farming just because the fuel of the steam engine is coal, the volume has always been large, and the weight of the tractor made is amazing. Due to the limitation of the steam engine, the steam tractor has never been recognized. Since the invention of the internal combustion engine, this kind of machine is small, and many inventors have put their hopes on the internal combustion engine. Then, Mr. Andros, www.uxiaspit.com. You also know that the government will promote the use of tractors in Greece, which is an opportunity for you, Constantine said. His Royal Highness, we can directly imitate American tractors. For example, the tractors produced by the American company Halbert, which is the most imported in Greece, are very suitable, Andros said excitedly. What are you going to do with the matching parts? Constantine asked. Greece's domestic heavy industry capacity is weak. With just such a tractor factory, if Andros intends to build a complete tractor parts industry in Greece, it is not realistic at all. Even if the Greek government is willing to provide sufficient subsidy funds, it is impossible to establish it. His Royal Highness, I plan to mainly import parts from abroad at the beginning, and then assemble them in Greece. After the factory has a certain experience, I will organize the production of some key parts, such as gasoline engines. As for other less important parts, according to economic principles, either produce it yourself or purchase it from abroad. The Prime Minister, who was quite satisfied, agreed that each tractor would leave the factory and the Greek government would subsidize 4,000 drachmas at the same time. It was guaranteed by the government and loaned 7 million drachmas from the Royal Bank of Greece for the initial capital to build the factory. On the other hand, Constantine recruited a senior manager with management ability from a Greek steel factory to help Andros manage the factory. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 165, Scramble for Macedonia. In addition to the policy of supporting the tractor industry, the Greek government also made a decision to purchase 600 motorcycles for the government postal service and 800 for the military. This move is mainly to promote the use of motorcycles. Although these motorcycles, at first glance, are no different from bicycles, they are actually modified with bicycles. Together with the Prime Minister, On the carriage returning to Athens from the suburban farm, after entering the city, when passing the registration site of the agricultural cooperative, Constantine saw a special group of Greeks, shabby clothes and disheveled faces whenever the staff responsible for registering the roster signaled. These people began to swarm forward and scramble to sign up. Seeing this scene, Constantine knocked on the carriage and motioned for the groom to stop. Prime Minister, why are there so many refugees? We have been recruiting people to reclaim land in Albania for some time now. Why are there so many refugees? Should it? Constantine pulled the curtains and pointed at the crowd in confusion. There were not many refugees in Greece, not to mention, tens of thousands of people have already gone to Albania. It's a refugee from outside Greece, Bulgaria, Macedonia. It's all possible, Alexandros said with a frown, especially recently, after the introduction of the Greek land law and policies to encourage population, more refugees came to Greece. What's going on? These places are not on the midst of war now? Where did so many refugees come from? Constantine asked, puzzled. Since the merger of Eastern Rumelia and Bulgaria, the Bulgarians have started to exclude others, not only the Greeks, but also the MSLs living in Bulgaria. In addition, there is Romania. Romania is not only against the Ottoman Turks, but also against the Greeks, Prime Minister Alexandros said helplessly. During the Ottoman Empire, in order to rule this multi-religious and multi-ethnic country, the Ottoman Empire invented a special system, the millet system. The essence of this system is that according to the beliefs of the people, Christians govern Christians, MSL govern MSL, and neither side interferes. Since Bulgaria, Serbia, and Romania were all Christian residences, during the Ottoman Empire, the officials here were mainly Greeks, who, as tax collectors, paid taxes for the Sultan. This is also the reason why Greek is very important among the upper classes of the three kingdoms. Now that these three countries have gained independence, it is a matter of course that the Greeks, who were originally rulers, were ostracized by the locals. Thinking of this, Constantine still had some doubts and said, what about the refugees from Macedonia? Macedonia is still under the Ottoman Empire. They have no reason to be refugees. Since the War of 1896, Bulgaria has begun to infiltrate the Macedonial region. Some Bulgarian soldiers, even without taking off their military uniforms, directly entered the Macedonial region, and they are attracting some local Bulgarians. As volunteers, they asked the local people to join Bulgaria. Constantine was silent for a moment, not expecting that the situation in the Balkans would suddenly change. Thinking of this, Constantine, who realized the importance of the Macedonian issue, said to Kafka, who was driving, "Let's go directly to the Ministry of Defense building." The carriage stopped in front of the Ministry of Defense building, and Prime Minister Constantine and Alexandros hurried into the building. The two went straight to the conference room, and at the same time summoned the Director of Intelligence and the Chief of General Staff to participate in the emergency meeting. After the personnel arrived, Constantine asked eagerly, "What's the situation in Macedonia now? Why are the Bulgarians so unscrupulous? How can there be a large number of Bulgarian armed personnel in Macedonia?" His Royal Highness, this is mainly the deteriorating situation of the Ottoman Empire, especially after the defeat of the war in 1896, when most of Macedonia was chaotic, almost anarchy, said Chief Intelligence Officer Tsavalis. The Ottoman Empire couldn't control the situation there, which caused the residents of Macedonia to be very confused. Some people advocated independence from the Ottoman Empire and established a Macedonian state with a capital in Thessaloniki. Having said this, Tsavalis paused and said, "But recently some Bulgarians have begun to appear in the Macedonial region, and they promote the idea of Great Bulgaria." The so-called Greater Bulgaria is the Bulgaria that includes the whole of Macedonia and Thrace in the east and west. In 1878, after the Russo-Turkish War, Russia invaded the city of Constantinople and forced the Ottomans to sign a treaty of recognition of Great Bulgaria. But Russia's unbridled expansion aroused the fear of European countries, and later under pressure from the international community, 1881 in the Treaty of Berlin in 1999, the previous treaty signed between Russia and the Ottomans was repealed in view of the close relationship between Bulgaria and Russia. Bulgaria is regarded by European countries as a vassal of Russia. In order to curb Russia's sphere of influence in the Balkans, in the Treaty of Berlin in 1881, Bulgaria's territory was greatly reduced, including only the southern part of the Balkan Mountains, Macedonia and Thrace, Eastern Rumelia, all returned to the Ottomans. It was not until 1885 that Bulgaria was reunited with Eastern Rumelia. Greater Bulgaria only existed on paper for 3 years. Bulgaria is naturally unwilling. However, why is Bulgaria so unscrupulous that all troops have entered Macedonia? Although the Ottomans have no time to take care of them now, the international community has not responded. Constantine wondered, Your Highness www.wuxiaspit.com. Have you forgotten that the attention of the international community is now on the Boer War? Prime Minister Alexandros reminded. Constantine suddenly realized and patted his head. In 1884, prospectors discovered the world's largest rand gold mine on a remote pasture between Pretoria and the Vaal River in the Transvaal Republic. Johannesburg was subsequently established on this gold mine. Profits and taxes from the gold mines have fueled rapid economic development in the Transvaal Republic, while also exacerbating friction with Britain. Obviously, the British are moved by the world's largest gold mine. However, the Boer Republic is a country built by Dutch descendants. Boolean means peasant in Dutch, and South Africa was originally a Dutch colony. In Europe, many countries sympathize with the Boers. Among these countries that sympathize with the Boers, Germany is the strongest. The Boers have gold and buy a lot of arms in Germany, such as Mauser 98 rifles. The Boers were able to be so tough and unyielding in the face of Britain, mainly because they got the support of Germany. The filth of the British and the Transvaal, and the Germans pulling Britain's back, attracted the attention of European countries for a while. Naturally, no one cared about Bulgaria's little move in Macedonia. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 166, Infiltrate Macedonia. However, the direction of the Boer War surprised European countries. There are only 440,000 people in the Boer Republic, and Britain was at its peak at this time. The undisputed world hegemony with the increase of troops before and after. The total British troops in southern Africa reached 450,000 at its peak. It was against such a disparate power balance that the Boer War was dragged on and off. It's hard to say that at this time. Kaiser Wilhelm II, watching the British's humble performance in South Africa, and the original time and space. Decades later, Hitler watched the Soviet Union's poor performance in Finland, and the two Germans in the critical period. Leaders, did they all have the illusion that the potential enemy is like a broken house, rickety and rotten, and it will collapse with a few kicks? The enemy has fallen into disrepair. Is there chance here? In this war, the British spent £220 million. How much is this money? To make a comparison, the Boer War cost £220 million, or 1.465 billion taels of silver, twice as much as the sum of the unequal treaties signed by the Manchu and Qing dynasties. This war was an important turning point for the world hegemon, Britain. Since then, Britain's power in the colonies began to shrink, not expand. At the end of the 19th century, Germany and the United States, two countries that hardly depended on colonies, experienced rapid economic development. In 1894, the United States surpassed the United Kingdom and officially became the world's largest economic power. The British industrial development is stagnant and mired in the quagmire. A natural question is raised: is it necessary to maintain a colony since it is so expensive? Since then, the British Empire itself has become less confident. Before the Boer War, Britain had always pursued a policy of glorious isolation and disdain for alliances. After the Boer War, alliances are really sweet. Soon afterward, Britain and Japan formed the Anglo-Japanese alliance. The world hegemony is in a hard fight. All the countries in Europe are watching the British jokes, and all the countries are making small moves. For example, on the Balkan issue, the original German Triple B railway issue, the British agreed to relax the conditions on the railway issue in order to hold back Germany, allowing the Germans to build this strategic railway. Recalling this information in his mind, Constantine said, since other countries have no scruples about the Balkan issue, they can't just watch the Bulgarians secretly expand in Macedonia. They can send soldiers into Macedonia to promote the great Bulgarian idea, can't we? Constantine said after the defeat of the Ottomans, due to the consideration of international relations, Greece did not insist on asking for compensation from the Ottomans, which led to Greece currently in a period of weakness and urgently in need of recovering its economy and digesting its newly acquired territories. Constantine was unwilling to let Greece fall into the turmoil at this time. However, the Bulgarians cannot be allowed to drive out the Greeks in Macedonia. Otherwise, the Greeks in Macedonia will be gone. How can Greece claim Macedonia's territorial rights after that? Your Highness, what do you mean? Alexandros asked. We also sent soldiers into Macedonia, and at the same time joined the Macedonian Orthodox Church to help them raise their flags. and let the Education Foundation in Macedonia sponsor more students to receive Greek education. Constantine said although Greece currently does not want to cause trouble, it is not afraid of trouble as long as Greece can digest its current territory smoothly and its economy is on the right track. In terms of comprehensive strength, Greece will become the strongest country among the three Balkan countries. Serbia is a landlocked country at this time, with the smallest territorial area among the three countries, and faced many difficulties in economic development in the original historical time and space. Serbia began to shudder. It was already after the Second Alba War. He was so confident that he even wanted to touch the of a tiger in Austria-Hungary. Bulgaria is not a landlocked country, but it is not much stronger than a landlocked country. Its harbors are all on the coast of the Black Sea. Bulgarian ships want to enter the Mediterranean Sea, but also look at the face of Ottoman. Passing the Bosphorus Strait, it is almost impossible for these two countries to become powerful countries through peaceful development compared with Greece. The biggest advantage of these two countries is their arable land area. Serbia, the smallest of the two countries, has a lot of arable land, and its territory is almost all plains. Both of these countries are located on the lower Danube River and are rich in food, so despite their underdeveloped economies, they can feed many populations. But Greece is different. Whether it is Albania or the Greek peninsula, although there is not much arable land, it has a long coastline and many excellent ports. The port alone can make Serbia and Bulgaria drool with envy. So, time is on Greece's side, and the longer the peace lasts, the stronger Greece will be compared to the two countries. Infiltration and propaganda like this is nothing more than spending money and buying influence. How can a country like Bulgaria, which relies on exporting food for a living, have the financial resources to compete with Greece? Everyone agreed with Constantine's proposal. Let the power of the Greeks also penetrate deep into Macedonia, fight against Bulgaria, and restrain Bulgaria's invisible expansion. The Macedonial region is located in the northeast of Greece, and it is the only way for Greece to expand to the Balkans and the Dardanelles. If there is no Macedonia, the direction of Greek expansion will be blocked. The Macedonian Orthodox Church www.uxiaspit.com, in principle, is closer to us, said Prime Minister Alexandros. It would be really good news if Greece's influence in Macedonia could be expanded by sponsoring churches in Macedonia. The ethnic groups in Macedonia are mixed, and the ethnic identity of the Greeks covers a wider range. Orthodox Christians and Greek-speaking people who meet these two criteria will be considered Greeks by the Greek people. The modern Greek nation is built on the basis of belief, so that some people think that the war between Greece and the Ottomans was a religious war. Therefore, the Macedonian Church has no reason not to support Greece. Kavlis, your intelligence department needs to play an active role in establishing a reliable and extensive intelligence network in the Macedonian region, so that when the situation in Europe changes, Greece can successfully recover Macedonia, Constantine said to Kavlis. Looking at the current situation, the Ottoman Empire will continue to decline. She really does not have the strength to control the situation in Macedonia. Although it is unlikely that the situation in Europe will change significantly in the near future, your intelligence department should be prepared. The mapping of the map and the collection of intelligence should not be taken down. Hearing this, Emmanuel asked, then, our army will also send some active soldiers as volunteers into Macedonia, please. Remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 167. Period. Chapter 168. Macedonian Uprising. 1901, Sofia, Royal Palace. The new Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Bulgaria, Kalari, is delivering a State of the Union address to King Ferdinand I, Prime Minister. How is the situation in Macedonia? Ferdinand I asked worriedly. Like the successive Bulgarian rulers in history, Ferdinand was also determined to establish a new Byzantine Empire. However, after the war between Greece and the Ottomans in 1896, the territory of Greece was greatly expanded, and the population increased sharply, which made Bulgaria, which was originally the first among the three Balkan countries, feel enormous pressure. Your Majesty, according to the intelligence, the forces supported by the Greeks also appeared in the Macedonial region. Kaladi also frowned. Being in the position of Bulgaria, Macedonia, which is strategically important, is an indispensable place for further development, especially the port in the Aegean Sea, which is a strategic location that Bulgaria dreams of. The southern part of Bulgaria is only 100 kilometers away from the Aegean Sea, but since Macedonia and Thrace are still under the Ottoman Empire, Bulgaria's trade route has to go around a large circle and rely on the ports on the Black Sea coast for international trade. which is a serious problem, affected the development of the Bulgarian economy. According to what we heard from the embassy in Greece, after the 1896 war, Greece's economy developed extremely fast, with an economic growth rate of more than 8% every year. Callaway quoted the ambassador as saying, "From your point of view, will the strength gap between us and Greece get bigger and bigger over time?" King Ferdinand asked worriedly, hearing the words. Callaway remained silent. He was indeed analyzing the specific data of Greece in his mind. Culturally, Greece has implemented compulsory education. Almost all school-age children have received education. The country's literacy rate has reached 50%, and the number of college students has reached 50,000. Economically, Greece has the Congo colony, and the whole of Greece gets 60 million francs of revenue from it every year, mainly from colonial companies, 450 million francs. Due to the relationship of the Latin currency union, the exchange rate between the franc and the Greek currency drachma, the Italian lira, is 1:1:1. Looking at King Ferdinand's increasingly gloomy face, Callaway wisely stopped reporting the situation in Greece. Hearing this, Ferdinand also regretted it. During the Ottoman War in Greece in 1896, there was a coup in Bulgaria. He was a new king. He was an officer from the Austro-Hungarian Empire and just became the Grand Duke of Bulgaria. The situation in Bulgaria was relatively chaotic. The powers were strongly opposed to expanding the scale of the war, so Bulgaria could only watch Greece annex the Ottoman territories. In the end, it now seems that it would have been better if Bulgaria had taken a tougher attitude at the time, but at the worst, it would not have allowed Greece to successfully expand its territory. Now Greece's economy is soaring, especially when I heard that Greece has found an oil field with an annual output of 80,000 tons in Albania. Ferdinand, who heard the news, swallowed a fly. "Your Majesty, the situation is now clear. The Macedonian issue cannot be delayed any longer. The longer it takes, the better it will be for Greece," Prime Minister Callaway said firmly. "What do you mean? It is time to make a decisive decision to completely resolve the issue of Macedonia's ownership. While the gap between the two countries is still within a certain range, immediately let our forces in Macedonia act, either independently or autonomously, to disturb the situation in the Balkans and disrupt the development of the Greeks. Steps. Can't let the rhythm follow the Greek beat." The shrewd-eyed Callaway has a keen eye on the situation in the Balkans, and can see Greece's plan at a glance. The Greeks are currently very restrained on the Macedonian issue, just because they do not want to cause more troubles, seize the opportunity to develop the economy, and digest the benefits they have grabbed from the Ottomans. Moreover, Macedonia is nominally a territory belonging to the Ottomans. No matter how many small moves Bulgaria makes, it will not make much sense in a short period of time, and this will not change. Ferdinand pondered for a moment. The Prime Minister's words did make sense. "What do you think we should do?" "Prime Minister, it's not difficult, Your Majesty. Inform our soldiers in Macedonia, let them act as soon as possible, make some noise, attract the attention of European countries, and force European countries to pay attention to the Macedonian issue, whether it is independence or whatever. Let the Balkans. The situation has become chaotic. Most of the residents of Macedonia are Christians. At the end of the 19th century, the liberation of Christians from pagans was naturally supported by the people of various European countries. By creating chaos and making bad news in Macedonia, the Macedonian issue has been put on the agenda of European politicians. In May 1901, a French merchant ship in Thessaloniki was attacked, and the raging merchant ship burned for 3 hours on the sea near the pier. All citizens of just on the second day of the incident, an explosion occurred at a branch of an Ottoman bank in Thessaloniki, killing and injuring more than 50 people. An organization called Thessaloniki Assassins publicly claimed responsibility for the incident in the newspapers and declared the Macedonian people's independence for a time. The turbulent situation in the Balkans was mysterious and attracted the attention of the whole of Europe. France and the United Kingdom immediately put pressure on the Ottoman authorities. www.wuxiaspit.com to ask the Ottoman government to play an active role in ending the local chaos. The shareholders behind the bank that exploded were almost all British and French capitalists at the same time. The ethnic organizations close to Bulgaria have become increasingly aggressive in their tactics in rural areas. For those villages that are emotionally close to Greece, armed bandits brutally looted and slaughtered, and used terrifying means to deal with these people. On August 2nd, the southern region of Macedonia officially opened a prelude to the uprising. From Bitalia to Kruos, from the Black Sea to the Aegean Sea, there were irregular armed forces of the uprising everywhere, participating in the insurrection. After the initial victory of the uprising, Several leaders who led the uprising established a Kruvorsch Republic in Kruvorsch, Britain, France, Russia, Austria-Hungary, Germany. The ambassadors of the 5 countries personally visited the Ottoman Grand Vizier and asked the Ottoman Empire to take measures to maintain the situation and prevent the situation from further deterioration at this time. All countries do not want to cause more troubles in Europe. Britain is deeply involved in the Boer War and has no time to care. Russia, with the extension of the Trans-Siberian Railway, is expanding into Asia with all its strength, and is ambitiously planning to establish Yellow Russia. The news of the uprising reached Athens, and nationalist fanatic citizens came to the capital, chanting slogans demanding support for Macedonian independence and the liberation of Christians. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 169, War in Macedonia. Seeing that the situation in the Balkans might collapse, the foreign powers exerted diplomatic pressure on Bulgaria, severely reprimanded Bulgaria's actions, and at the same time instructed the Ottoman troops stationed in Macedonia to eliminate the Macedonian rebels. The Ottoman government mobilized a superior force of 30,000 people to attack the land occupied by the insurgents. After all, the insurgent army was not a professional soldier, and the number was too different from the Ottoman army, which caused the insurgent army to collapse at a critical moment. The commander of the insurgent army sent a letter code-named 543 to Bulgaria, requesting immediate armed intervention due to pressure from various countries. Bulgaria did not dare to take the risk of the world and openly sent troops into Macedonia after the rebel army asked the main messenger, Bulgaria, for help. There was no news. The Kruvorsch Republic only existed for 10 days. And it came to an end. The Ottoman army carried out brutal revenge on the areas and villages involved in the uprising. More than 200 villages were burned down, more than 4,000 people were killed, and about 30,000 refugees fled to Bulgaria. Obviously, Bulgaria's test was obviously ineffective. After the robbery, after informing Greece of the specific situation of the uprising, as the chief intelligence officer of the Macedonian region, Kulis visited the Greek consulate in Thessaloniki. When I came to the office of Consul Myaris, I happened to meet Demetrius, a wealthy Greek businessman, and was complaining to Myaris, Mr. Consul, the Macedonia area is very chaotic now. Murder and robbery have become commonplace, especially it's a businessman like me, and I'm even more frightened. Everywhere I go, there are people watching. These days, the well-known and wealthy businessman Myaris has been worried all day long. Every day, people come to the door to extort money and threaten his life. Mr. Consul, for God's sake, can you take some measures to provide security for us Greeks? Myaris said with a bitter face. Seeing Kulis come in, Myaris invited him to sit down with him. Kulis, a decision has been made in China to increase the penetration of Macedonia. You are the chief intelligence officer, but some are busy, Myaris said to Kulis. The government has decided to set up the Greek-Macedonian Council in Macedonia, which will be responsible for fighting against Bulgaria's expansion in Macedonia and at the same time protecting the lives and property of Greeks in Macedonia. Will this be too risky? If it is discovered, it will cause a diplomatic dispute. Kulis said in surprise when he heard the bold decision to directly use the Thessaloniki consulate as the headquarters. I visited Hassan Pasha before, and he suggested that Greece could increase its volunteer presence in Macedonia and that the government of Thessaloniki could remain neutral so that we could distribute supplies and treat the wounded through the embassy. Myaris said. That's what I said. In fact, I want us in Bulgaria to fight against each other, to consume and contain each other's strength. Chloe nodded when he heard the words. That's fine. Many things that could only be done secretly can now be done in an open and honest way. Then, the cost. Chloe said volunteers are easy to find. Whether in Greece or in Macedonia, there are many people who are willing to fight for Greece, but the funding is not easy to solve. After all, to be volunteers, they can't be asked to pay for themselves, which is unreasonable. Hearing the word funding, Demetrius, who had been listening, was moved and said, "Two gentlemen, if you have financial difficulties, I can provide some funding, but I would like to ask you to send some professional personnel, to ensure the safety of those of us who have to stop in Macedonia for businessmen." When Demetrius came to the embassy this time, he wanted to seek assistance. Hearing that there were difficulties in funding, he planned to donate generously. Hearing this, Myaris, who was also struggling with funding, was very happy. Mr. Demetrius is a noble patriot. Although Greece's fiscal revenue has increased year by year in recent years, because the government has to take care of all aspects, land reclamation and immigration, construction of railways and highways, repayment of foreign debts, etc. Its finances have never been ample. With the encouragement of the government, a group of Greek soldiers will soon take off their uniforms and go to Macedonia. After hearing that his problem was resolved, Demetrius said goodbye with interest, understanding that it was not appropriate for him to be a businessman in the presence of intelligence matters. After seeing Demetrius leave, Cyrus said, "Actually, I am here this time, and I have another situation to report to you, Mr. Myaris. You also know that due to the failure of the Ottoman military attack, the IMRO organization divided. We can attract some IMRO fighters to join us." Kulis suggested. IMRO lost confidence in Bulgaria after the defeat because the Bulgarians watched from the sidelines. As long as you can increase Greece's power in Macedonia, you can do it. Myaris granted Kuris full rights. 4. The upcoming Greek-Macedonian Committee. Your intelligence support is very important, Kuris. Be sure not to slack off. At the same time, Crown Prince Constantine specifically asked me to instruct you, Kuris, that your intelligence work should expand into Macedonia. For example, Skopje, Myaris said meaningfully. Skopje, near the capital of the Republic of North Macedonia, is an important city in northern Macedonia. The Kingdom of Serbia has always had plans here, and the Crown Prince deliberately expanded the intelligence work to Skopje. What does it mean? Will the fighters of the Greek Macedonian Council also enter North Macedonia? Will this conflict with Serbia? Kulis asked in surprise. It's hard enough to deal with Bulgaria alone, and now you have to deal with Serbia. After the uprising in Macedonia, www.uxiaspit.com Serbia also joined the upsurge of fighting for Macedonia. Armed personnel belonging to Serbia are more active in Kosovo and North Macedonia. The country is instructed to do so. We will do it with the support of the wealthy businessman Demetrius. Greek armed men also entered Macedonia in large numbers to fight for the great cause of the Greek nation. In the Tatoi Palace, Constantine is discussing the situation in Macedonia with Prime Minister Alexandros. The attitudes of all countries are very firm. In order to maintain the stability of the situation in Europe, the major countries must also maintain the status of the Ottomans in Macedonia. Alexandros said, the situation in Europe is complicated. Austria-Hungary will do its utmost to support the Ottoman Empire's rule in Macedonia. Serbia and Bulgaria, the two Slavic countries, are all close to Russia. Once the situation in Macedonia changes, it will mean Russia's power in the Balkans expand, and Germany, in order to appease its ally Austria-Hungary, will definitely stand on the side of Austria-Hungary. Britain and France also do not want to see the Slavic forces entering the Mediterranean, that is to say, in a short period of time. Despite the fierce competition among the three countries in the Macedonial region, the overall situation will still not change. Constantine said that's fine, it's best for Greece. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 170, to Congo. Since Europe is in a time of peace, at least on the surface, there is little chance of war in the Balkans if the overall political and military landscape of Europe does not change. Moreover, the King of Greece is still alive after all. King George, who is in his 60s, as a statesman, can still be regarded as the heyday of the spring and autumn period. As the crown prince, Constantine intervened in political and military affairs everywhere. Therefore, in June 1901, Constantine and Crown Princess Sophie went to the Kingdom of Congo. Although Constantine is the King of Congo, the monarch of the Congo has never been to his country since the establishment of the Kingdom of Congo in 1885. As it happens, the two Esmeralda-class warships, the Congo and the Banning, also need to be transferred to the Congo to continue to protect the smooth route from Congo to Europe in the Atlantic Ocean. After 12 days of sea travel, the fleet finally reached the port of Matadi in Congo. After a day of rest in Matadi with the entourage, the group took the train from Matadi to Constantinople. The so-called Constantinople was originally named Kinshasa. After the establishment of the Congo Kingdom, the colonial authorities changed it to Constantinople. The name was named after Constantine himself, meaning Constantine. Ding's city. In this way, a city called Constantinople appeared in Central Africa, the capital of the Kingdom of Congo. The train traveled on the railway tracks to Constantinople, and the vast tropical rainforest on both sides of the railway quickly retreated. It's a miracle to build a long-distance railway in such a wild place. Princess Sophie, who was sitting in the box, sighed while looking at the scenery outside the window. Through the window, the engineering of human beings. The railway runs in the luxuriant Congolese rainforest, and being in it makes people feel a sense of inconceivable. This is a miracle created by capital, Constantine replied. In order to build this railway, it is said that thousands of people were killed and injured, including dozens of European technical and engineering personnel, so that in the end, no one wanted to come here to build the railway. The next morning, the railway station of Constantinople waited for the arrival of the king and queen. After arriving at the station, the luxury carriage carried the group and headed to the Constantine Hotel in order to receive the king and queen. The Congolese government specially built such a luxurious high-end hotel on both sides of the front of the hotel. Heavily armed soldiers lined up neatly to protect the safety of the hotel. Senior officials of the Congolese government and military officers stood in front of the carriage after Constantine and Sophie got out of the carriage hand in hand. Everyone crowded into the hotel. The journey from Athens to Constantinople lasted more than 10 days. The next day, in the conference room of the Grand Hotel, Constantine summoned the chief officials of the colony and his entourage. This trip to Congo is to solve a series of problems in Congo, Constantine said. For example, the currency problem in Congo. From a legal point of view, the Kingdom of Congo is an independent sovereign state. The king is Constantine, and has nothing to do with Greece. Therefore, the currency problem in Congo has not been resolved. In Congo, you can see all kinds of currencies: francs, pounds, dollars, marks, etc., and so on. Very confusing. The uncertainty of the currency has caused the government's taxation problem to appear very confusing. Moreover, there is a large amount of foreign currency circulating in the market, which also causes the seigniorage that should have been obtained by Greece from the Congo to flow into the hands of other countries. Recently, the Greek government has planned to withdraw the minting rights from the National Bank of Greece. Seigniorage is the income obtained after deducting the cost of issuing currency. Previously, after independence from the Ottoman Empire, the economy of Greece had been in turmoil, with a sparse population and limited currency issuance. Therefore, the seigniorage revenue is also limited, and the seigniorage obtained by the government-issued currency may not cover the cost. The issuance of currency in the gold standard era requires reserves, which is not as beneficial as the paper currency era. The issuance of a 100 yuan bill in paper currency is a printing cost of 1 yuan and a net income of 99 yuan. So the Greek government granted the coinage right to the largest bank in Greece, the National Bank of Greece. With the development of the Greek economy and the existence of the Congo, the revenue from seigniorage has become more and more considerable. When the Greek government obtains the right to coinage, it can legally collect the seigniorage of Congo. Greece's currency is circulated in the Congolese market as the only legal tender. Then every drachma in circulation can get part of the income for Greece. Before going to Congo, Prime Minister Alexandros came to discuss the matter with Constantine. After the unification of the currency, the taxation work in Congo is also more convenient, which is a good thing. Benning echoed. Seeing that everyone had no objection, Constantine continued, there is also the form of our rule in Congo. The Congolese colony has been pursuing a free trade policy since its establishment, and we will continue to adhere to this policy. Belgium. In the original historical time and space, when it acquired the Congo, Belgium was an industrial country. From this perspective, the Congo under Belgian rule needs to provide cheap raw materials and commodity markets. Belgium is the second industrial country in the world after the United Kingdom. However, unlike Belgium, Greece is not an industrial country, so Greece does not need the Congo to supply a lot of cheap raw materials, and the urgency of the commodity market is not as hot as Belgium. Historically, the blood rubber under Leopold, Congolese natives who could not collect enough rubber, cut off their palms, almost became a model of the evil colonial system. Greece's current pillar industry is the cotton textile industry, but although the population of the Congo has 20 million, all www.wuxiaspit.com, it seems that a large number of textiles should be needed. However, the high temperature of 25 to 35 degrees in the Congo all year round makes textiles less popular in the Congo due to the commitments made at the Berlin Conference. When the Congo was obtained, the Congo has always pursued a free trade policy. Industrial products other than Greek textiles are not very competitive in the Congolese market. Therefore, until now, Congo has only provided Greece with a large amount of raw materials, while the market share of Greek industrial products in Congo is very limited. You have to remember that Congo is an independent country. When governing things in Congo, you should be flexible and try your best to respect local customs and habits. Constantine reiterated this is not the hypocrisy of Constantine, but the time is already in the 20th century, and colonialism has entered the end stage. The rapid economic rise of the United States and Germany, which do not rely on colonies, and the economic slowness of Britain and France, which have huge colonies, is a very obvious signal for Greece, which is in urgent need of industrialization. The Congo has a greater significance as a source of raw materials, which does not require high-cost governance methods if Greece encounters the original historical time and space. It will face a very embarrassing result if the Congolese people are revolted due to the Belgian smashing of bones and marrow. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 171, Gold Standard System. His Royal Highness, since the government has decided to withdraw the coinage, does the Greek government need to increase its gold reserves? Banning asked suddenly after the Greek government decided to withdraw the coinage. Increasing the gold reserves came into the government's vision at present. When Greece issues currency, it relies on the foreign exchange it holds, such as pounds, francs or marks, and treats these foreign exchange as gold reserves in disguised form, and then issues a corresponding amount of drachma to circulate in Greece. This is due to the limited gold reserves in Greece before, which were simply not enough to implement a real gold standard system. Now that the government has withdrawn the coinage right, the implementation of the gold standard system is imminent, and a large amount of gold reserves must be required as a deposit for issuing currency. In the middle and late 19th century, major countries in the world successively implemented the gold standard system. The output of gold is limited and its value is relatively stable, but silver is different. In the late 19th century, as the production of silver increased greatly, the value of silver continued to depreciate. Therefore, countries that use the gold standard system, because their currency can be freely exchanged for gold, have high credit, and people are more willing to hold such currency. With the increase in Greece's fiscal revenue in recent years, it has begun to repay the principal of its huge foreign debt, which has further reduced the domestic gold reserves. Recently, a lot of gold mines have been discovered in Congo. If there is a need in Greece, it can increase gold mining in Congo, Banning said. In recent years, with the initial completion of infrastructure construction, Congo's gold exports have surged, and gold mining companies from various countries have gone to Congo to pan for gold. Brute said regretfully. The import and export volume of yellow gold this year will reach 1.2 tons. If Greece can get the gold, when he obtained the Congo in 1885, due to the limited strength of Greece, the government itself had to rely on borrowing to maintain it, and there was simply no sufficient funds to invest in the Congo, which is thousands of miles away, and Constantine was eager to obtain benefits from the Congo, so he could only borrow chickens to lay eggs in order to speed up the development of Congo and attract international investment. Constantine specifically instructed Banning to encourage people to develop Congo's gold mines. It is relying on the attractiveness of gold that capitals from various countries are willing to come to Congo to overcome many difficulties and build railways and other transportation facilities in the tropical rainforest of Congo. The first railway in the Congo, the Matadi-Constantinople Railway, was completed, followed by the construction of the Upper Congo River to Lake Tanganyika and Kayseri and the navigation terminal to the center of Katwanga. The railway, the two lines are connected in Kamina, with a total length of 3,500 kilometers, has not yet been completed. As the saying goes, there are both gains and losses. Greece does not have the strength to monopolize Congo's gold. The flow of people and capital attracted by gold has greatly reduced Greece's investment and difficulty in developing Congo. So far, the mining industry in Congo has mainly relied on gold mining and copper mining. Although other mineral deposits in Congo are also very rich, so far, little progress has been made, otherwise the Congolese government's fiscal revenue will grow rapidly, Banning added. Congo's minerals are mainly non-ferrous metals and rare metals. To be honest, it will take some time for these minerals to fully show their value. There is not much demand for these metals at the moment. After the afternoon meeting, Constantine and Sophie went to visit a rubber forest outside Constantinople, led by Banning and Kosterblum. This rubber estate is the property of the Greek Congolese corporation. Stepping on the soft and thick fallen leaves, Constantine and his group strolled in the artificial rubber forests that were neatly arranged and equally spaced. This rubber plantation covers an area of more than 1,000 hectares and can produce more than 100 tons of rubber every year, Kosterblum explained to Constantine while he was talking. The workers in the rubber plantation came to cut the rubber, but the appearance of these rubber workers surprised Constantine. Black hair and eyes, Yellow skin, isn't this what a typical Asian looks like? What's going on with these workers? Asians? Constantine asked, pointing to a few workers who were cutting rubber. Oh, these are workers from Southeast Asia, Kosterblum explained. No way, the Congolese natives are too lazy and love freedom. You also know that Congo is located in the tropics, rich in products, and there is no such thing as winter, which makes the Congolese natives very lazy. For them, they will not starve to death anyway. If it doesn't freeze, if it's a big deal, just dig into the rainforest, and you can always find something to eat. Saying here, Castebro also felt helpless towards the Congolese natives. Get to work, hey, trying to find ways to be lazy and slippery, like a top. He will only turn if he has to whip a whip, but if the supervisors don't notice, they will fish in troubled waters. Having said this, Kosterblum shook his head helplessly. Later, we noticed that in the rubber plantations managed by the British, those workers hired from Southeast Asia worked diligently and efficiently, and we followed suit. In this way, we have also introduced workers from Southeast Asia to other plantations. Their efficiency is indeed much higher than that of the indigenous people. Speaking of this, Kosterblum seemed to remember something and said, we plan to hire some agricultural experts from Europe in the near future to come here to guide agricultural production. It is best to set up an agricultural research institute in Constantinople, www.wuxiaspit.com, to guide the agricultural planting here for a long time. The day after the visit, I heard the news that Constantine had come to Constantinople. The chiefs from all over the Congo gave Constantine a large number of gifts like ivory, lion skin, rhino horn, etc., piled up in the room. One of the chiefs of the Makulu tribe, probably specially inquired about Constantine's news from the Congolese authorities, and sent a lion head in an ingenious way. In Greek mythology, the son of Zeus, Hercules, is very powerful. After fighting a lion, Hercules turned the lion's head into a hat. The famous Greek Alexander the Great in history worshipped Heracles very much and always regarded him as an idol. In the portraits left by Alexander, it is common for him to imitate the image of Hercules wearing a lion hat. It seems that the chieftain heard that Constantine was a soldier, so he was probably flattering by giving him such a hat, meaning that Constantine was a fierce general comparable to Alexander. Constantine really liked this gift, so he specially returned the gift and gave the chieftain the ivory-carved pistol that he had always treasured. Time came to 1908. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 172, Greek Secret. Woo! With the sound of the whistle, a ship approached the pier of Piraeus port. After disembarking, Kemal, wearing a suit and carrying a suitcase, followed the flow of people and got off the ship. As a cadet of the Istanbul Military Academy, Kemal planned to take advantage of the holiday to come to Athens to have a look. How did this small country, Greece, which was independent from the Ottoman Empire for only a few decades, do it, and how did it defeat the Ottoman Empire? Although the Ottoman Empire had suffered successive defeats in foreign wars before this, those countries were old European powers, such as Austria-Hungary and Russia, which were old rivals of the Ottomans. Although losing the war is not glorious, but losing to a big country, the Ottoman people can comfort themselves that the enemy is too powerful. Only losing to a small country like Greece made the entire Ottoman Empire feel a heavy humiliation, and could no longer find a reason to prevaricate after disembarking. Since the port of Piraeus is still some distance from the center of Athens, take a public carriage at the pier and head to the center of Athens. In the same car with Kemal was a young man with gold-rimmed glasses and a bushy mustache. He was well-dressed and looked polite, like a teacher. Sir, I'm Kemal from Thessaloniki. Nice to meet you. Kemal extended his hand to greet him. Mr. Kemal, Hans, from Germany. Hans stretched out his hand. Looking at the bookish Mr. Hans, Kemal asked curiously, if you don't mind, sir, can you know why you came to Athens from Germany? Oh, it doesn't matter. I used to be a lecturer at Heidelberg University. This time I came to Athens because I accepted the invitation from Princess Sophie to come to Athens University for academic exchanges. Academic exchanges are very common among European universities. Talent exchanges are also frequent in various countries. Many British people come to Germany or France to work. Similarly, it is also common for German or French people to go to the United Kingdom. Then, from Western Europe to Greece is naturally also possible. Moreover, in order to attract high-quality talents from Western Europe, various universities in Greece have tried their best to pay all the fees and corresponding remuneration for the scholars who come. Oh, so that's how it is, a lecturer at Heidelberg University. That's amazing, Kemal complimented. However, Since you are a lecturer at Heidelberg University, why did you come to Athens? Isn't Heidelberg University, such a famous institution of higher learning, a better platform for development? Kemal asked curiously. Could it be that higher education in Greece has developed to this point? Equal level, it's not wrong to say that, but because it is a famous university, Heidelberg University's teachers are very competitive, and promotion is very difficult. Hans said with a sigh. The personnel system of German universities is mainly based on the professor system, which is known as professors running the school. However, the drawbacks are also obvious. Professors have great rights. Before young teachers become professors, they almost do white jobs for professors in the traditional German scientific research career. There is no clear upward trajectory from getting a doctorate to being promoted to professor. The German system is dubbed all or nothing, which means either become a professor or nothing in Germany. The average age of tenured professors is 41.4 years. If you can't get a tenured professorship, you can only run between various teaching assistant contracts, or do administrative work in universities or scientific research institutions. After explaining these things to Kemal, Hans said, I am only 25 years old now. Even if my luck is really good and my academic level is good enough, I have to stay in my 40s before I have the chance to become a professor, but I can't wait that long later. My teacher, Professor Schmidt, suggested to me that if you don't want to get your qualifications in Germany, you can think of a way to do it in a foreign university. So he wrote a letter of recommendation to Princess Sophie in person. Hans said here with a look of joy, who is Princess Sophie? Kemal heard the name twice in a row, but didn't understand who it was. Oh, Princess Sophie is His Majesty's younger sister. She is married to the Crown Prince Constantine of Greece. She has been serving in the Greek Education Foundation and is the president of the foundation. In fact, I should be more appropriately called Her Royal Highness the Crown Princess. After receiving the recommendation letter from Teacher Schmidt, Her Royal Highness the Crown Princess personally wrote a reply letter and invited me to come to the University of Athens for academic exchanges. Hans, who was only 25 years old, said this with a very proud expression. There were some young German teachers who were hired by Greek universities with high salaries during their exchange in Greece. Teacher Schmidt told me that Greek universities have developed rapidly in recent years, and the talent gap is relatively large. The ability is good, and it can be recognized by the university. It is not a problem to be promoted to professor for a few years. If it is in Germany, it is completely impossible. Hearing this, Kemal had mixed feelings, thinking of the current situation of the Ottoman Empire. Except for some universities run by foreigners, the Ottoman Empire actually had no institutions of higher learning that could be obtained in a feudal autocratic country. It is hard to imagine what it would be like for a sultan or a royal family to write a letter to a little-known young teacher in person. Emphasizing education from top to bottom is probably the key to Greece's victory, Kemal concluded in his heart. The carriage was carrying two people, driving on the flat asphalt road. The farmland on both sides of the road stretched as far as the eye could see, and it was the season for farming. Kemal looked at the black smoke machine in the farmland through the car window, pointed to Hans and said, "Is that a tractor?" When Hans heard the words, he turned his head to watch. Could it be that a tractor was turning over the ground? Where the machine passed, the ground was rolling, and the black wet soil was leaking out of the ground. Tractors are actually the most popular among farmers in the United States. Recently, some farmers in Western Europe have also used tractors for farming. As far as I know, there are some more sensible people who have purchased tractors. During the busy farming season, the land area smaller landowners will hire tractors, Hans said. The labor efficiency of tractors is very high. Speaking of which, I was invited to Greece to exchange academics, this time www.wuxiaspit.com. In fact, it has something to do with tractors. What does it have to do with a tractor? Kemal asked in confusion for a while. Recently, Greece is also promoting the use of tractors. I heard that the government has made a move to provide subsidies for the purchase of tractors. When I was studying for a doctorate, I studied mechanical engineering. Princess Sophie made it very clear in the letter, invited me to come to the School of Mechanical Engineering to teach courses on internal combustion engines. Hans explained the future of staying in Germany is uncertain, and the competition is fierce. At the same time, it is a personal invitation letter from the princess. What he has learned is indeed useful in Greece, and the salary given is also very generous. Hans naturally agreed to the invitation. Moreover, the early stage was just academic exchanges. If the Greek university environment and development prospects could not satisfy Hans, He could return to Heidelberg University at any time. Kemal listened to Hans's plan, but his heart was sad. Thinking about the backward farming methods that Ottoman can see everywhere, and then looking at the tractors working in the farmland outside the window, he was originally confused about this trip to Athens. If so, and now, before the city of Athens has even entered, the secret of Greece's defeat of the Ottomans has already been thoroughly understood. The haze in his heart was getting thicker and heavier. He gritted his teeth and made up his mind. After returning from the trip, he inspected the mysterious organization that had been circulating among his classmates in the military academy. Osman had to make changes. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, chapter 173, Kemal and number 039, S. Athens tour. Hans saw Kemal staring intently at the tractor working outside the car window, and it was obvious that Kemal was very interested in the tractor. According to the planning process, after I reported to the University of Athens and completed the handover, the next day I will visit the tractor factory on the spot. If you are interested, you can come and visit together. First, they were both foreigners and met in a foreign country. Second, they were both young people, in their 20s. Hans had a good impression of Kemal. Moreover, both in Germany and in the Ottomans, for the sake of interests of both sides, diplomatic relations have continued to enter in recent years, and domestic public opinion is also enthusiastic. Tractor factory? Greece can already produce its own tractors. Kemal lost his voice. Yes, I heard that it is near the largest industrial area in Greece, near the port of Piraeus, not far from here. Hans explained. The carriage is getting closer to the city center, and there are more and more pedestrians and vehicles on the streets as Greece's finances improve. Athens must have a new look as the current capital of Greece under the active supervision of Prime Minister Alexandros. Athens began to renovate and expand the old city with great fanfare. The new urban construction plan, in the preparation process, fully absorbed the advanced experience and lessons in the development process of large cities in Western Europe, and conducted a full demonstration. The designers specially went to Paris, Hamburg, London and other large and medium-sized European cities. Conduct field trips. After several years of hard work, Athens, as the largest city in Greece, is not a dilapidated small city. With the construction of infrastructure in recent years, spacious and flat asphalt roads and perfect underground pipelines have been built in Athens. Facilities, water supply systems, etc., and a large number of public lighting systems on both sides of the road. As for the public lighting system, what kind of situation should be adopted has caused a lot of controversy. Conservatives believe that they should learn from London and adopt the very mature gas lighting street lamps. After all, a big city like London has done preliminary exploration. As long as you follow the rules, there will be no outrageous mistakes in large-scale lighting applications. There are also outstanding people who are keenly aware that electric lighting is the best choice in the future, and Athens also has considerable advantages in adopting electric lighting systems. That is, Greece, as a trendsetter in the wave of alternating current, the development of electric power systems has always been in an advanced state. Moreover, doing so can also promote the application of alternating current, and further promote it in Greece. Up to now, the main electricity users in Greece are still factories. In terms of personal electricity consumption, it still takes time to popularize it on a large scale. After all, the inertia of society is also very large. As a trendy application, bulb lighting, suddenly the public still cannot accept it. Of course, this may also be caused by the lack of other energy sources in Greece except for electricity. After learning about the public lighting plan being prepared by the municipal government, I was keenly aware that this was an opportunity to further promote electricity into thousands of households in Greece. The street lamps standing on the streets of Athens are just advertisements, showing the world electric lighting of infinite light. Previously, in order to persuade and win over the domestic capital, the Crown Prince Constantine built a small amount of street lights, which caused the citizens of Athens, and even the people near Athens, to come to Athens to watch the sensational effect of the street lights at night, which inspired the lighting manager of the power plant, Carl. Carl went out in person and lobbied the city hall and the Prime Minister's residence in person, and finally got a promise that, for insurance reasons, developed factories could be allowed to build the first phase of lighting projects and apply them on a small scale. If the feasibility of bulb lighting for public lighting is verified, Tesla Power will get more contracts. At the same time, a number of parks have been built in the city. Around these parks, many hospitals, markets, and supporting schools have sprung up. The large number of these public facilities has given the whole of Greece a new look. So, in the dim night, The public carriage carrying Kemal and Hans entered the center of Athens, just in time for the lights to come on, which greatly impressed the two who came to Athens for the first time. Hans looked at the scene in front of him and said with admiration, "It's completely different from the backward Greece I imagined, and it's not inferior to the cities in Western Europe." Athens gave Hans a good first impression. It was not as desolate and dilapidated in Central and Eastern Europe as the people in Western Europe believed. His future workplace still looked very good, and the vibrant city of Athens gave Kemal a much more complicated impression. Think of a city as prestigious as Constantinople. When you walk on the streets, you can see this smelly sewage everywhere. The Ottoman Empire's finances are sluggish, and it is impossible to spend too much money on the sewage system that does not matter. For a long time in history, Constantinople was the most magnificent city in Europe. In the Middle Ages, those Western European business travelers who passed through Constantinople, when they passed through this city, hardly felt ashamed. When there were only tens of thousands of people in London and Paris, Constantinople was a city with a population of over 1 million. Just from the nickname of Constantinople, Istanbul, which means going into the city, you can understand the surging joy in the hearts of those who are about to enter this great city. I don't know when the light of Constantinople was surpassed by Paris, London, and even Berlin. These latecomers, although Constantinople has many historic architectural monuments, you reading www.ucanchu.com. However, the impression it brings to tourists gradually tends to be negative. The sewage on the streets is rampant, so that everywhere is smelly. The roads that have not been expanded for many years and appear to be narrow and cramped, and the dilapidated and mottled houses. It is difficult to connect to Constantinople in the history books with the now dreary city. Since it was late, the two got off the carriage and went to the hotel together just in time for the busy period of the night. In the small hotel's small lobby, dozens of guests were bustlingly seated. Seeing two well-dressed guests, Hans and Kemal walked in. The boss, who was standing behind the counter, lit up, knowing that it was a distinguished guest, so he hurriedly stepped forward, took the boxes from the two of them, and said eagerly, "Welcome to two guests, but there is only one room in our shop." Looking at the embarrassment of the two, he continued, "The recent period of time is the peak period for guests, and other hotels are also crowded. The two of you will stay in this hotel for one night. If you are not satisfied, tomorrow you can find a nice hotel again." Hans was not proficient in Greek and could not talk casually, so Kemal was in charge of all negotiations with the boss. After all, Kemal is from Thessaloniki, a city known as a city where even shoe-shine boys can speak 6 languages. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 174, Tractor Factory. The two huddled together in a room, and after barely a night, the next morning, when Kemal and Hans were dining in the front hall, Hans was talking about reporting to the University of Athens. He happened to be heard by the hotel owner next to him, and said with a face full of surprise, "So this Mr. Hans is an exchange scholar from Germany?" After speaking, he turned around and took a pot of hot coffee from the counter and placed it on the table of the two of them. Kemal said in a confused manner, "It seems that we didn't order coffee. This pot of coffee is in my collection, the best quality coffee produced in Congo, and I'm giving it to the two of you," the hotel owner said with a smile on his face. "Recently, a lot of foreign exchange scholars have come to Greece. I heard from my son Dratimi that many scholars have stayed to teach in Greek universities. Mr. Hans, I hope you can stay too." Hans was surprised. "Who is your son?" "Oh, Dratimi is a student of the University of Athens. I heard from him recently that the government has decided to revitalize education and culture in Greece. It needs to hire a lot of high-quality foreign talents to teach in universities in Greece. It is urgently needed in China now, because our hotel is close to the Acropolis. The University of Athens is near the Acropolis. We have hosted several visiting scholars from abroad before." After saying this, he turned and left. After breakfast, Hans officially headed to the Acropolis with his luggage in hand to report to the University of Athens. "I heard that an exchange scholar who used to be a lecturer at Heidelberg University in Germany was invited to the University of Athens." President Ichius of the University of Athens warmly received Hans in person. Then, "Mr. Hans, as said in the invitation letter from Crown Princess Sophie, please teach a course about internal combustion engines in our school," Ichius explained to Hans. "As for scientific research, you don't have to worry at all. Recently supported and sponsored by the Greek military, a research and development group will be set up to study high-horsepower internal combustion engines, such as gasoline engines or diesel engines," Ichius explained happily. After finally inviting a doctor of internal combustion engines, President Ickius naturally wanted to keep Hans, so he first explained the benefits that Professor Hans could get by staying in Greece to teach. Hans was also eager to try the internal combustion engine R&D project sponsored by the military. If this is in Germany, there are not many scholars with profound qualifications and excellent academic literacy. It is completely unrealistic to want to lead such a key R&D project as the birthplace of compulsory education. Germany currently has a strong talent pool, which can be called the largest in the world. In the original time and space, the Nobel Prize in the early 20th century was almost monopolized by the Germans. For a young lecturer like Hans, in such a key project, the best outcome is to serve as an assistant under a certain professor, and he is inconspicuous in the entire R&D team. This is not the case in Greece. Education in Greece, especially higher education, has developed rapidly in recent years, and there is a serious shortage of talents. For talents like Hans, the research field is the internal combustion engine. This technology field, which is very hot recently in various countries, naturally requires make the most of it. If you have no objection, Mr. Hans, after you visit the tractor factory, you can enter the R&D team of the internal combustion engine, Ickius said the next day. In order to show his sincerity, Ickius took a carriage and went to the tractor factory with Hans to inspect. Kemal pretended to be Hans' friend and went to visit with the two of them. The tractor factory of the Piraeus factory started with imitation American tractors, as well as a large number of subsidies from the government and the army, and established a factory in the Piraeus industrial zone, and production has been on track. After the three of them came to the factory area, they went straight to the main workshop, a spacious workshop with almost completely connected interiors. Ickius led the two to personally visit the tractor's assembly workshop as professionals. Ickius and Hans had many professional terms in their words, but Kemal listened vaguely and looked around in the busy workshop. I saw that under the curved dome of the workshop, workers held various parts, walked back and forth, and installed them on the main frame of the tractor. Currently, this factory can produce about 500 tractors a year, Ickius proudly said to the two. Hans, can you produce your own engine? Hans asked. After setting up the factory, we can already produce some of our own. However, most of the engines are still imported due to the lack of technology. Recently, we plan to introduce a famous engineer in your country, the diesel engine production line invented by Diesel. The human Ickius said sideways. In 1892, Diesel developed a practical diesel-powered compression ignition engine. This engine has high torque, low fuel consumption, and can use inferior fuel. Once it was invented, it showed a brilliant development prospect. Angelus personally went to Western Europe to seek technical support from Diesel and his partners, hoping to obtain the production technology of practical diesel engines. In history, Diesel became a millionaire by inventing the diesel engine. The reason for his embarrassment later was because he failed in speculation and had no business acumen. In fact, Ickius' so-called research and development of high-horsepower engines is also to put gold on his face, or more precisely, to provide technical support as a team of engineers to help factories imitate and produce qualified engines as soon as possible. However, you just said that this factory is heavily sponsored by the military. Moreover, I heard that your country's military purchased most of the products of this factory. Why is that? Kemal asked casually. Rode after hearing that he got into the carriage. Kemal, who had been taciturn, opened his mouth. www.wuxiaspit.com. Ickius was stunned. As an educator, he did not have a keen sense of confidentiality, and said, when the tractor factory was established, it has received strong support from the military. At first, it seemed to be related to the military's support of agricultural cooperatives. They have large areas of land to be cultivated and use tractors efficiently. However, I heard recently that the military asked the factory to produce a special batch of tractors. Diesel engines are used as power to enter military service. Instead of military horses, they are used to tow heavy artillery. Hearing the heavy artillery being dragged, Kemal was startled and asked subconsciously, can tractors be used to drag artillery? Theoretically speaking, there is no problem with a tractor towing the artillery. After all, a 10 to 20 horsepower tractor is used to tow a 2 to 3 ton field artillery, and the power is completely sufficient, Hans explained. As a military cadet, Kemal is naturally aware of the importance of artillery mobility at present. The most common practice in various countries is to use heavy draft horses to drag artillery. One cannon requires about 2 or 3 draft horses in the field troops of various countries. Most of the artillery is a lightweight field gun. Compared with the field gun, the heavy gun has a long range and great power, but it is very cumbersome. and it is difficult to keep up with the speed of the troops in the field, so it is generally used for fortress defense. If the disadvantages of difficult maneuvering can be solved, such as using a tractor to drag the artillery, then the advantages of the heavy artillery will be greatly increased. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 175, Choice of Educational Philosophy. Kamal, who returned from a visit to the tractor factory, returned to the hotel alone. Although I only traveled in Greece for a few days, what I saw and heard made people feel a lot. There is no doubt that Greece is now on the right path. Even as a bystander, he can feel the transformation that is taking place in this country. Kamal's determination to join a secret organization is also more decisive. The Ottoman Empire, which is in depression, wants to change, and relying only on military is not enough. Constantine, who came back from a trip to Congo, and Sophie attended a meeting of the Royal Educational Foundation after a 2-day break to discuss the future development of the foundation as the entire country of Greece recovers from the war. The educational development situation in Greece is also changing rapidly. Constantine and Sophie entered the conference room of the foundation hand in hand, but they saw Laris, the Minister of Education nominated and appointed by Alexandros. Seeing Constantine's surprised eyes, Laris said respectfully, "I heard that the Education Foundation held a meeting to discuss the next step in the development of Greek education. I was dispatched by Prime Minister Alexandros to attend the meeting." After the surprise, Constantine thought about it, and it was not difficult to understand the Prime Minister's intention. The current situation in the education sector in Greece is very strange. It is different from the current education in other countries in the world. It is almost entirely controlled by the Royal Education Foundation, and the government has very little voice in the education system. The Royal Education Foundation is a privately established foundation that operates independently according to its own charter, and the government has absolutely no influence over it so far. Compulsory education in Greece has been run entirely by foundations after the government's finances gradually became rich. Prime Minister Alexandros naturally also wanted to develop in the field of education. After the meeting, Crown Princess Sophie, as the president of the foundation, first introduced the work of the foundation to everyone. Last year, 1904, the Royal Greek Educational Foundation received a total of 94 million drachmas, including 12 million drachmas from the Congolese fixed income, and the foundation's investment income in the Congo 4,200 drachmas. Van drachma, including the share dividends of the gold mining company, the Greek Congo Corporation and other companies. The rest is the income obtained by the foundation's investment in Europe, such as Philip Pharmaceuticals, Greek Petroleum, etc. Oh, by the way, it also includes the income from donations by social workers, 8 million drachmas. Sophie paused, took a sip of tea to moisten her throat, and waited for everyone to digest the information. After learning that the foundation fully funded students and implemented 5-year compulsory education in Greece, many rich Greeks at home and abroad have generously donated their money and are willing to sponsor the foundation's charitable deeds. Although Laris looked calm on the surface, he was shocked inside. As a private foundation, the Education Foundation's annual income almost reached 1/5 of the Greek government's annual fiscal revenue. It is no wonder that a private organization, with its own power to sponsor the development of education throughout Greece. Last year, the foundation sponsored 430,000 students in compulsory education, 60,000 students in middle school, 12,000 college students, and 120 overseas students, spending a total of 87 million drachmas. After all, there was silence in the conference room, and everyone was considering the information revealed by Crown Princess Sophie, His Royal Highness Crown Prince and Crown Princess. Although the Royal Education Foundation is a private foundation, it is named after the royal family, and it is engaged in education that has a great impact on the country. The government cannot completely ignore it, Laris said. Gestured to the Constantines. So, on behalf of the government, I intend to ask some basic questions about the foundation's development of education. Crown Princess Sophie, may I ask whether the education supported by the foundation is elite education or universal education? Laris looked at the two of Constantine. Elite education generally means that teachers directly screen students, determine their needs, and give education methods that meet their characteristics. Therefore, gifted students get genius education, people with mediocre qualifications get general education, and people with low level may have almost no education. Generally speaking, mass education means that teachers do not discriminate students and conduct homogeneous education without discrimination. Regardless of your qualifications, you are given the same education. In other words, mass education tends to be universal, and broad. Britain and the United States are representatives of elite education, and Germany and Japan are models of mass education. How Greece should choose? In fact, there are traces to follow in modern times. The late developing countries have succeeded in catching up with the advanced countries. There are not many such countries, that is, Germany and Japan. Coincidentally, these two late developing countries practice mass education and education at this point. Greece, which is also a late developing country, naturally also chooses mass education. Moreover, the total population of Greece is currently only over 3 million, and school-age children account for about 1/10 of the population. It is unimaginable to select a small number of students for elite education on the basis of such a small number of students. On this question, Greece has no choice at all. We can only implement mass education, and it is impossible to implement elite education at all, Constantine replied. Laris nodded thoughtfully, expressing his approval of Constantine's statement. Since it is the implementation of mass education, the government's investment in education must be greatly increased, Laris said, taking the opportunity. Public education treats everyone equally and does not discriminate, at least at the stage of compulsory education, so the state's investment in education is bound to increase. www.wuxiaspit.com. In Germany, where mass education is implemented, the expenditure of education funds is included in government expenditures occupies a considerable share. Since Constantine himself said that Greece should implement mass education, the Minister of Education Laris took the opportunity to tell the news that the government has decided to increase investment in education. So the Crown Prince and his wife at least have no obvious excuse to refuse. At present, the only institution of higher learning in Greece is the University of Athens, which is too thin, which is far from enough. Prime Minister Alexandros also considered that only relying on the financial resources of the Education Foundation, after all, has limited power, so this year, he specially allocated 12 million drachmas to invest in education and jointly strengthen civic education in Greece. The government decided to use this money to build several new research and application universities in Greece, Laris told the crowd. With the foundation, the royal family has an outstanding authority in the current Greek education circle. It seems that the government has also decided to increase its influence in the education circle. The government intends to build 2 new universities in Tirana and Vlora in Albania, and at the same time increase investment in the Greek Institute of Technology to make it truly a university of science and technology. The Greek Technical Institute is currently only a vocational and technical college. Although it is developing rapidly, it is limited by investment and limited in scale. The campus is also very close to the University of Athens, and it is inconspicuous under the light of the University of Athens. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.